Okay, we're live. Let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We're
gotta
live.
laugh. Gotta laugh.
Check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
Come on, we're there.
Yeah.
Write it down.
Okay. Wow. They just now showed the counter for people that's supposed to join in, but they still ain't sent out the notifications. Yo, this shit is crazy. Anyway, let me just go with it. This is Darkman XTV. We were experiencing technical difficulties. Hopefully, we are not going to be experiencing any more technical difficulties. This is the Great Arawakan Council with special guest Brother Kurimeo. He should be joining us back in a few. Okay. If not, our brothers, he is busy, so I will understand that if he's not able to join back in. So it's not an issue, it's not a problem. But with that being said, the show must go on. Honor everyone. Thank you all for joining back in. Honor to you. Peace, love, light to you all. To our pet, Young Cherokee Peasy, Feathered Sun, Brother Star Strikes, it's a Chase Truth, Charmaine, Bell, Sean Allen, and Jones. Honor to you all. And let's just get into it. All right, Brother Kappa Hot Step, we're going to start it right back off with you, my brother.
All right. Yeah. So what I was trying to show you guys before was so basically our topic today is eugenics. So when I heard that, it got me thinking about a good place would be to trace it back to the founder of the term, to essentially, determine the founder of the ideology. So I was looking around earlier on today, and then I came across this website here. This is from the University of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Origins of Eugenics from Sir Francis Galton to Virginia's Racial Integrity Act of 1924. So that's him on the left. This is Sir Francis Galton. So they're saying that basically he coined the term, and then they're going to break it down into a bit of detail. So they begin with the positive and negative eugenics. So it says Sir Francis Galton first coined the term eugenics in 1883. So we now know that the term came about from the late 1800s. So put simply, eugenics means well-born. So initially, Galton focused on positive eugenics, encouraging healthy, capable people of above average intelligence to bear more children. But again, remember, when they're saying above average intelligence, that will go back to the IQ system, and we know that's Eurocentric.
Yeah.
And then they were basically using this with the idea of building an improved human race. So some followers of Galton combined his emphasis on ancestral traits with Gregor Mendel's research on patterns of inheritance in an attempt to explain the generational transmission of genetic traits in human beings. So it kind of goes back to that whole Darwinism idea of, survival of the fittest. That was something that Darwin believed in a lot. So it says for the negative eugenics as developed in the United States and Germany, played on fears of race degeneration. And that's another thing to touch on as well, because you had people like Walter Plecker, for example. He was in contact with actual Nazis in Germany. For example.
Mm-hmm.
So at a time when the working class poor were reproducing at a greater rate than successful middle and upper class members of society, these ideas garnered considerable interest. One of the most famous proponents in the United States was President Theodore Roosevelt, who warned that the failure of couples of Anglo-Saxon heritage to produce large families would lead to race suicide. And you're kind of seeing this more so today, I would say. I don't know, most people, well, I'm guessing a lot of people have probably caught on to this, but you have clinical trials, which they're doing at the moment now, where they're trying to essentially create artificial wombs in laboratories that fetuses can be born from. I think they were first testing them on lambs, like lamb fetuses. I don't know if anyone saw the videos of that, and it's literally like, you know, you grow a fetus in a plastic bag. It's crazy.
They have a facility about 30 minutes away out in Philadelphia where they have they started that process of developing a lamb. It's like a plastic bag.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
And then basically they're trying to work their way naturally, you know, from the lamb to real life fetuses. And again, this would be for, you know, what they're calling people of Anglo-Saxon heritage, your so-called, you know, Caucasian people. So this is for them, you know. It's not for, you know, people that look like me and you. You know, it's not for women that look like, you know, our daughters, our mothers, and our aunties and sisters.
Yeah.
So now we get to the Eugenics Record Office. And it says here, the center of the eugenics movement in the United States was the Eugenics Record Office, or the ERO, at Cold Spring Harbor, New York. Biologist Charles Davenport established the ERO and was joined in his work by director Harry H. Lachlan. Both men were members of the American Breeders Association. Their view of eugenics as applied to human populations drew from the agricultural model of breeding the strongest and most capable members of a species, while making certain that the weakest members do not reproduce. And now we get to pedigree charts from the American Eugenics Society and Fitter Families. So eugenicists attempted to demonstrate the power of heredity by constructing pedigree charts of defective families. These charts were used to scientifically quantify the assertion that human fertilities or frailties, such as profligacy and indolence, were genetic components that could be passed from one generation to the next. Two studies were published: The Dukes, a study in crime, pauperism, disease, and heredity by Richard L. Dugdale, and The Kallikak Family, a study in the heredity of feeble-mindedness by Henry H. Goddard, that charted the propensity towards criminality, disease, and immoral behavior of the extended families of the Dukes and the Kallikaks. Eugenicists pointed to these texts to demonstrate that feeble-mindedness was an inherited attribute and to reveal how the care of such degenerates represented an enormous cost to society. So the ERO promoted eugenics research by compiling records or pedigrees of thousands of families. Charles Davenport created the Family History Book, which was assisted field workers as they interviewed families and assembled pedigrees specifying inheritable family attributes, which might range from allergies to civic leadership. Even a propensity for carpentry or dressmaking was considered a genetically inherited trait. Davenport and Lachlan also issued another manual titled How to Make a Eugenical Family Study, to instruct field workers in the creation of pedigree charts of study subjects from poor rural areas or from institutionalized settings. Field workers use symbols to depict defective conditions such as epilepsy and sexual immorality. The American Eugenics Society presented eugenics exhibits at state fairs throughout the country and provided information encouraging high-grade people to reproduce at a greater rate for the benefit of society. The society even sponsored fitter family contests. So now we get to Harry H. Lachlan and Acts of 1924. So this is U.S. Immigration Act, Virginia's Racial Integrity Act, and Virginia's Eugenical Sterilization Act. So in 1914, Harry H. Lachlan attended the first Race Betterment Conference sponsored by J.H. Kellogg. So even guys creating cereal are eugenicists. So the same year, in his model sterilization law, Lachlan declared that the socially inadequate of society should be sterilized. This model law was accompanied by pedigree charts which were used to demonstrate the hereditary nature of traits such as alcoholism, illegitimacy, and feeble-mindedness. Lachlan asserted that passage of these undesirable traits to future generations would be eradicated if the unfortunate people who possessed them could be prevented from reproducing. In 1922, Lachlan's model law was included in the book Eugenical Sterilization in the United States. The book compiled legal materials and statistics regarding sterilization and was a valuable reference for sterilization activists in states throughout the country. Proponents of eugenics worked tirelessly to assert the legitimacy of this new discipline. For Americans who feared the potential degradation of their race and culture, eugenics offered a convenient and scientifically plausible response to those fears. Sterilization of the unfit seemed a cost-effective means of strengthening and improving American society. By 1924, Lauchlin's influence extended in several directions. He testified before Congress in support of the Immigration Restriction Act to limit immigration from Eastern and Southern Europe. Lauchlin influenced passage of this law by presenting skewed data to support his assertion that the percentage of these immigrant populations in prisons and mental institutions was far greater than the percentage in the general population would warrant. So again, it shows you that they've always been fiddling with numbers. You know, they've never really been truthful about them. So we see now that Lauchlin also provided guidance in support of Virginia's Racial Integrity Act, which made it illegal for whites in Virginia to marry outside their race. The act narrowly defined who could claim to be a member of the white race, stating that the term white person shall apply only to such person as has no trace whatever of any blood other than Caucasian. Virginia lawmakers were careful to leave an escape clause for colleagues who claimed descent from Pocahontas. Those with 1/16 or less of the blood of the American Indian would also count as white. So the language of Lauchlin's Model Sterilization Act was used in Virginia's Eugenical Sterilization Act to legalize compulsory sterilizations in the state. This legislation to rid Virginia of defective persons was drafted by Aubrey E. Strode, a former member of the Virginia General Assembly, at the request of longtime associate Albert Priddy, who directed the Virginia colony for the epileptic and feeble-minded in Lynchburg, Virginia. So once again, I found this particular article. This was from the University of Virginia. This was from the historical collections at the Claude Moore Health Sciences Library. Okay, so next, what I was really thinking about as well when I was really getting into this was idea of race, because you see how they were saying like they left a clause in who was a so-called white person in Virginia. So it got me thinking a little bit about Brazil, because one thing I noticed about Brazil is that race is not very solid and concrete in Brazil. Race is very much embraced as a social thing. There's many different racial categories in Brazil, and people, you know, freely move in between different ones on a daily basis as they see fit. And, you know, this is seen as perfectly normal. It's seen as just a part and parcel of society.
Yeah.
So I came across this article from Psychology Today, and this was, what does the Brazilian census tell us about race? And this is problems with Brazilian and US census data on race. So the person that wrote this article said, in 2010, I posted a 6-part series on the US census and race. In it, I pointed out numerous changes in race categories and subcategories over the 23 censuses, and multiple contradictions between scientific knowledge about human variation and the census race categories. I also offered a simple solution that would allow the government to collect the information it needs without contradicting science and offending or perplexing many citizens. Because race is a cultural concept, beliefs about race vary dramatically from one culture to another. In this regard, America and Brazil are amazingly different in the categories they use. The United States has a small number of racial categories based overwhelmingly on ancestry. Thus, it is possible for an American who looks white to really be black because he or she has black blood. So obviously we know this goes back to the one drop rule that was created.
Yeah.
But again, you're going to see now that, you know, one drop doesn't exist everywhere, not even within the Americas. Is a very systematic thing, and it's not as worldwide as people might think. In contrast, Brazilians classify people according to what they look like, using a large number of different terms. For example, one study in the Brazilian Northeast conducted by the Instituto Brasileiro de Geografia e Estatística, the entity responsible for the census, asked people what color they were and received 134 different answers. Other studies have found even larger numbers, and the results vary regionally, with much fewer categories used in the south of the country. In many Brazilian families, different racial terms are used to refer to different children, while such distinctions are not possible in the United States because all the children, no matter what they look like, have the same ancestry. Thus, I was fascinated to read that for the first time, non-white people make up the majority of Brazil's population, according to preliminary results of the 2010 census. So slavery was much more widespread in Brazil than in the United States and ended only in 1888. And they say the number of Africans always outnumbered the number of Portuguese. But again, we know that when they say Africa, it's a descriptive.
Because even when you type in Negro de Terra for Brazil, it comes up as Indians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they came up with that term to oppose the other term, which was Negro de Guinea, which meant a Negro of Guinea, as in the Guinea coast, which would be, your west coast of Africa.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's very interesting that a Negro of Guinea is said to look like an African, but a Negro de Terra, a Negro of the land, of the Americas, would look like the complete polar opposite of what we envisioned a typical Negro to be, right? It don't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it said that the Portuguese men were probably fathering more offspring, with the African slaves than with the Portuguese women. But again, African is a very, very ambiguous term. I mean, when I explain the word to people, I say it's really a descriptive term rather than a geographic term.
It was pretty much like saying Negro, Moor, so on and so. Pretty much Tartar. So it's pretty much like anywhere there was like dark skinned folks, it was like African, Moor, Tartar, Negro, Blackie, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
there was a Negro from Terra Nova. So Negro de Terra is new from the New World. Negro from the New World. Negro de Terra Nova.
Yeah.
They go on to say, in fact, there is a saying in Brazil that everyone has one foot in the kitchen, meaning an ancestor who was an African slave, but that just means there was a whole lot of brown people around the place. And that's go ahead.
The Blancamiento as well in Brazil.
Yeah.
Blancamiento. It's a process of eugenics. It's one of them. It's one of them eugenics movements. That's a part of eugenics as well.
Yeah. Where was I? Oh, that's it. And thus, if Brazilians thought about race the way Americans do, it would always have been true that non-white people make up the majority of Brazil's population. To put it more strongly, using American racial categories, Brazil has always had a majority black population. So, of course, Brazilians do not use American racial categories and are critical of Americans for calling people black who are not black. Put differently, Brazilians would say that the American census overcounts the number of blacks, while Americans would say that the Brazilian census overcounts the number of whites. Specifically, the 2010 Brazilian census lists 47.7% of the population as white and only 7.6% as black, numbers that would seem unreal to visitors from the United States, because 43.1% were classified as mixed. Just as American census categories of race are unscientific and do not correspond to the cultural categories that Americans used to think about race, Brazilian census categories of race are also unscientific and also do not correspond to the cultural categories that Brazilians used to think about race. So race has never been about, bloodline per se.
Yeah.
So, for example, the largest number of non-white Brazilians would be classified as pardo, a census term that Americans can think of as roughly meaning mixed. However, pardo is a term that is rarely used in everyday speech. So the census categorizes tens of millions of Brazilians by a term they would not use to describe themselves or others. The biological sciences tell us that the human species has no biological races. All that exists is gradual variation, with more distant populations differing more from one another than closer ones. The social sciences tell us that different cultures use different concepts of race to categorize people, and governments tell us what racial categories to use to count people. So then when I was reading this to myself, it was really the last paragraph that really summed it up for me. So it got me thinking, yeah, people have to decide for themselves what they are. And if you don't, then a government is going to decide for you what you are, even if that's not what you are. It's basically kind of the undertone that I got from it.
Yep. And if you don't, they're going to mark you as their property, as government property. Yep.
So I wanted to find out a little bit more about some of the more variations in the descriptions of how people identify over there. Because I remember I caught like a video online once. It might have even been Henry Louis Gates when he was over in South America. I think he was going around asking people in Brazil like, "What are you?" And he was getting all different types of responses from the locals. And at the time, I just found that really interesting. So then I stumbled across this, which was racial classification and terminology in Brazil. So then it says, in Brazil, there are 5 racial classifications on the official census. Pardo, we just heard about, loosely meaning brown or mixed race. You have Preto, which means black. You have Branco, which means white. You have Amarelo, which means Asian. And you have Indio, which is supposed to mean Indian or native. The term Pardo can have several meanings, including brown, mulatto, mestizo, or any combination of mixed race. The term includes a wide variety of phenotypes and any combination of racial admixture. Activists of the Movimento Negro, Black Brazilian civil rights organizations, have long argued that the terms Preto and Pardo should be combined and recognized as Brazil's Afro-Brazilian population. This argument is based upon numerous socioeconomic studies and quality of life statistics that show that the profiles of Pretos and Pardos are nearly identical, while these same stats show that Brazil's white Branco population is much better off than those identified as Preto or Pardo. The Pardo classification can get to be quite complicated. There are those who argue that not all of Brazil's Pardos are black. For example, a person of a mixed European Indian background with no or negligible amounts of what they call African ancestry would not be seen as black. There are also people who recognize that their skin color, features, and racial background will classify them as Pardos, but that identify themselves as black or negra or negro. These types of persons may also define themselves as branco or white. There are 2 terms which mean black in Brazil, preto and negro. Activists of the Movimento Negro have distinguished the 2 in this way. Preto is generally a generic term that refers to the actual color as found in photos or documentaries, for example. In this case, the terms Preto and Branco refer to the actual colors in the color spectrum. The term Negro or Negra, on the other hand, refers to one's ethnic identity, or a term signifying persons who accept that their ancestry is mostly or partially African. But again, you have to remember, those people are basing their African ancestry based off eugenics. If you look at yourself, you see that your skin is brown, but you call it black, and you feel no way about that. That would be eugenics. Like, you would look in the mirror and see that your hair's curly, and you would say, well, that's African hair on my head. So that would also be eugenics, because you're judging yourself based off, other people's perceptions of what they tell you science is. So the term preto is still used on the Brazilian census, and citizens still use the term. So in general, a person defined as preta or preto is a person that either has very dark brown skin, very tightly curled hair, and other facial features that are stereotypically associated with persons of West Africa. So people know what a stereotype is already. It's a preconception about somebody. It doesn't mean that it's true. Well, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I just said, they just said as well. So having dark brown skin, very tightly curled hair, and other facial features, would stereotype you as having some type of ancestry that goes back to West Africa. So basically, that's a stereotype. It's not science. It's a preconception that if you have these attributes, that is who you are. So for some, if a person's skin is not jet black, although their physical appearance clearly denotes African ancestry, this person can also be classified as pardo or parda. And they say that this means an African descendant of the color pardo. So again, they're telling you right here that African is a descriptive term. It is not really anything to do with blood.
That's very interesting.
So remember, this is in Brazil. So Brazil is also in the Americas. So now you're going to see that race is a very strategic thing, and even in the same hemisphere, it doesn't have the same rules as where you may live per se.
Because even in most of the islands today, and I don't know if they do it in South America or Costa Rica, Brother Kurimeo, but on even on our ID cards, it doesn't say anything about black or anything dealing with color on the identification cards. Right? And I think they're made about 4. All right. So yeah. Go ahead, brother.
Oh wait, I just saw that somebody wanted the links. When I'm finished talking, I'll definitely drop all the links in the live chat for you guys. I'll definitely do that for you. So in the next paragraph now, it says other popular terms denoting race or color in Brazil include morena or moreno and mulata or mulatto. So today the term moreno is clearly the most popular, although this term does not appear on Brazilian census forms. A moreno can have almost any physical appearance with the exception of extremely pale persons of mostly European descent or appearance and persons with blonde or red hair. A morena can be a white person with a tan and or dark skin. A morena can be a person of any combination of mixed race who is difficult to define as simply black, white, or Indian. A morena can be a person of obvious African ancestry, alleged African, remember stereotype, light or dark skin, straight, curly, wavy, or kinky hair, who prefers not to be referred to as black. So again, this was the proof for me again. If race is who you are, how do you get to decide, well, I don't really feel that black today, I'd rather be white? Then that's not biology, that's social science.
That's also when you say that, I was speaking to my brother-in-law yesterday, and he was saying that that the Dominicans, that they hate being called moreno. They hate it. Say don't talk to them like that. Don't call them that. But I was telling him that's because of it means that they're mixed. They also have dark skinned people blood in them. That's right. Why they don't really like it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So they go on to say there's long been a debate in Brazil about removing the terms preta and parda from the census, including only the term negro. But many argue that this could push some persons of mixed ancestry to choose the term branca, which means white. So in reality, many persons who define themselves as branca in the Brazilian census would not be accepted as white in European countries or the United States. The addition of the term morena to the Brazilian census has also been considered. The problem in this case is that this could also give a confusing portrayal of the country's racial reality, as both persons of primarily European ancestry and appearance, tanned or with dark hair, could use this term, as could persons of mostly or partial African ancestry and any other combination of racial admixture. So if we keep going. In studies of racial terminology in Brazil, many scholars have made reference to the 1976 census, in which 136 different terms were employed by Brazilians when asked to describe their race or color. Even scholar Henry Louis Gates made reference to this report in the Brazilian portion of his 2011 PBS documentary Black in Latin America. Okay, yeah, it was him. Although it sounds confusing, in reality, there are not 136 different races in Brazil. And when one analyzes these terms, racial terminology is not as complex as it appears. Although it is true that people use more than 100 color or racial terms, when you add up the variations of certain popular terms and group them together, this number drops drastically. For example, many people use derivatives or versions of the same words. For example, branca means blanquina, meaning a little white. Morena became morena clara, light morena. Morena escura, meaning dark morena. or morena nina, meaning little morena, and so on, while the term preto or preta moved into pretina, little black girl, and negro became negrina, little black girl. And they also have neguina, which is little black, negal, which is big black man, etc. All told, when all of the root terms were combined with the derivative terms, in reality, 97% of all the responses used only 7 terms, and the 10 most commonly used terms made up 99% of all responses. In 2010, the Brazilian census reported that the combination of percentages of persons defining themselves as either preta or parda surpassed the total of those identifying themselves as branca for the first time since the 1890 census. And then it says here are the percentages for each category according to the 2010 census. So they said brancos came in at 47.3%, pardas were 43.1%, pretos were 7.6%, amarelos 2.1%, and indigenas 0.3%. As with anything pertaining to race in Brazil, this data can be interpreted in numerous ways. So taken as individual groups, one could say that brancos, 47.3%, are still the majority in Brazil. If one considers the criteria of the Movimento Negro and combines the totals of pardos, which is 43.1%, and pretos, which is 7.6%, one could say that these two groups of color make up 50.7% of Brazil's population and thus represent a slight majority. If we include the numbers of people identifying themselves as amarelo, literally yellow or Asian descent, and indigenas, which is indigenous, Indian or native, the majority status is even larger at 53.1%. All in all, these numbers are only relative. The Brazilian census is dependent upon self-identification, meaning that people define their color themselves, which has led to even more debate about the country's racial breakdown. In various studies, research has shown that the way Brazilians classify themselves oftentimes doesn't match up with the opinion of the person recording the data. A person may see him or herself as a pardo or parda, but the person recording the response may see the person as preto or preta. Similarly, a person saying that they are branca could be a parda in the opinion of the person recording the data, and so on and so on. All right, that's a little bit more. I won't read all of this one, but I'll just give you a little preview so you guys can read it for yourselves. One good example of this would be the actress Camila Pitanga. Pitanga is a light-skinned actress who defines herself as negra. The Movimento Negro also defines Pitanga as negra, but due to negative connotations associated with blackness in Brazil, Pitanga is often classified in the press as a moreno, and reports being constantly asked why she insists on defining herself as negra. And then this reminds me a lot of oh my god, I'm trying to think of the name now. The little Indian girl that they found oil on her land, and she became like the richest girl in the state. What was her name?
I can't remember her name.
I know, I've got it at the top of my head somewhere. I'm sure she was Choctaw.
Yeah,
I think I could have swore she was Choctaw. They found oil on
Sarah Rector, maybe?
That's the one, Sarah Rector, yeah. And basically, because of her wealth, because of the oil they found on the land that she occupied, they were willing to basically change her status to white so that she could travel, first class on the train service and everything like that. Because the way they saw it was they couldn't have a so-called, a black status, original, with all this oil and all this wealth, it wouldn't match up. So when they actually struck oil and they were trying to marry her off to Caucasians, I think they actually did make her white, by status. But yeah, that was Sarah Rector. So it says that since the 2000 census, the numbers of people defining themselves as pardos in 2010 increased from 38.4% to 43.1% in 2010. In this 10-year period, people defining themselves as pretos also increased from 6.2% to 7.6%, while those defining themselves as brancos decreased from 53.7% to 47.3%. So what is the reason for this slight change in group classification percentages? There are simply too many factors to consider in order to come to a conclusive response. So then I'll finish off on this particular one with the different ones they got. So factor 1, the increase in pretos and pardos could be due to an ongoing self-esteem and Black identity campaign by the Movimento Negro that encourages people to assume African ancestry, which for many years was a source of shame for persons who could not pass for Branca. This could have the effect of having people who formerly defined themselves as Branca redefine themselves as Parda or even Preta, as well as people formerly defining themselves as Pardas reclassifying themselves as Pretas. Number 2 was interracial marriage and relationships make up a significant proportion of Brazilian unions. It is possible that more children of these unions are being classified as Parda or Preta by their parents. Throughout the history of Brazil, millions of parents have wished for their children to have a more European physical appearance, and oftentimes these parents will define their children in categories denoting a lighter skin color. This author can attest to many very dark-skinned Brazilians being classified as Pardas on their birth certificates, for example. And also number 3, although whiteness continues to be the most valued racial classification in Brazil, some people have thought of themselves as white, may not see themselves as so white when they compare themselves to the whiteness of actors of Brazilian television or the globalized images of whiteness coming from the United States or Europe. There are many other factors, and considering all of these factors, there may never be a precise measure of the racial composition of Brazil, but it remains a spirited discussion that continues to provoke many heated debates and opinions. Oh, that was all of it anyway.
No, that's like we was having a conversation even with Brother Kurimeo the other day, right? And even where he's at, he was speaking of the disparities, like how one side is this, is this, and the other side is that. I mean, would you like to touch on that, brother, or
Yeah, no problem. Well, in Costa Rica, it's like two different worlds when you go to the Pacific side and to the Caribbean side. So we have both oceans. We're surrounded by both oceans. It's like two different countries. On the Caribbean side, we have most of the darker skinned aboriginals that look more of what people would say, West African or more like what people consider a Negro, right? And then on the other side, you got the other, copper colored people, and it's just a whole different vibe. There's a big mountain chain in between, so there's, it's really separated. It's like two different countries.
So we can see that even in the comparison, even not only in Brazil, but even down in Jamaica now, it's like they're doing like the same thing. Like certain areas of Jamaica, they're segregating it off. Like there's a Chinatown, certain people cannot go into that Chinatown. There's also other areas where you'll see how even the education system, everything is just being. And it's all going based off of complexion on down. But the reality and the truth is there's a lot of mixing that is pretty much all throughout the Americas now. And pretty much a lot of us are sharing each other's DNA. But it's just to show you that the thing about eugenics is it's a one-track pony at the end of the day. You see what I'm saying? The folks who created this, the folks who started this, they had a vision. And no matter what, even their descendants and their descendants and their descendants are going to try to see through that vision. And you still have folk out there who are not like the ones who are pushing the eugenics act, right? I call eugenics genocide, of human life, period. You see what I'm saying? And not just human life, because before eugenics has to take place on humanity, it has to take place on nature itself, right? That's what people have to keep in mind too, because after Brother Kappa is finished and we start going through the panel, we're going to introduce some information to you guys also. All right, go ahead, brother.
All right, so then, last thing that I had, what came to my mind in this topic was Australia. So I got me thinking about the film Rabbit Proof Fence. I know a lot of people have probably watched this film. It was all to do with the English colonial occupation of Australia and how they were going into the outback. And then they would go to these, indigenous Australian families. They would snatch up the children, and the whole purpose was to take these children, and assimilate them gradually into the new forming European, quote unquote, white society that was being erected on the land. And this was another form of bleaching. And you even hear in the film, I think it was the head of the program, an Englishman, and he was playing a film. He was playing a reel of film to these three women about their proposed plan to basically bleach out the Australian Aborigine within 3 generations. So then I stumbled across this. This is from Australians Together. This is the Stolen Generations. Anybody that hasn't watched the film Rabbit Proof Fence, I would say definitely go and watch that. It's a very good movie. So between 1910 to 1970, many Indigenous children were forcibly removed from their families as a result of various government policies. The generation of children removed under these policies became known as the Stolen Generations. The policies of child removal left a legacy of trauma and loss that continues to affect Indigenous communities, families, and individuals. So what happened and why? The forcible removal of Indigenous children from their families was part of the policy of assimilation. Assimilation was based on the assumption of Black inferiority and white superiority, which proposed that Indigenous people should be allowed to die out through a process of natural elimination, or where possible, should be assimilated into the white community. Children taken from their parents as part of the Stolen Generation were taught to reject their Indigenous heritage and forced to adopt white culture. Their names were often changed, and they were forbidden to speak their traditional languages. Some children were adopted by white families, and many were placed in institutions where abuse and neglect were common. Assimilation policies focused on children who were considered more adaptable to white society than Indigenous adults. Half-caste children, a term now considered derogatory for people of Aboriginal and white parentage, were particularly vulnerable to removal because authorities thought these children could be assimilated more easily into the white community due to their lighter skin color. Assimilation, including child removal policies, failed its aim of improving the lives of Indigenous Australians by absorbing them into white society. This was primarily because white society refused to accept Indigenous people as equals, regardless of their efforts to live like white people. So we get to Ruth's story. When Ruth was 4 years old, she was separated from her mother on Cherbourg Mission in Queensland. Ruth was 6 months old when she first arrived at Cherbourg. Times were tough. It was during the Depression, and Ruth's mother had gone to Cherbourg seeking help for her aging parents. But once she arrived at the mission, Ruth's mum was prevented from leaving. What was intended as a temporary visit became years of separation and control. People would say it was for your own good, but my own good was to stay with my mum, says Ruth. So mission. So again, who they're talking about, your so-called nuns and so forth. So they were, a very big part of this as well. The church has always played a heavy part in all of these colonization missions that have taken place. At first, Ruth was allowed to stay with her mum in the women's dormitory, but eventually every child was removed to a separate dormitory. Ruth was 4 when she was taken from her mum. Once you were taken from your parents, you had no more connection with them, she explains. For a short time, Ruth still saw her mum from a distance, but when Ruth was 5, her mother was sent away from Cherbourg and forced to leave her daughter behind. So why does the Stolen Generation still matter today? So the forcible removal of Indigenous children from their families had a profound impact that is still felt today. So for the children who were taken, many were psychologically, physically, and sexually abused while living in state care or with their adoptive families. Efforts to make stolen children reject their culture often caused them to feel ashamed of their Indigenous heritage. Many children were wrongly told that their parents had died or abandoned them, and many never knew where they had been taken from or who their biological families were. Living conditions in the institutions were highly controlled, and children were frequently punished harshly, were cold and hungry, and received minimal, if any, affection. The children generally received a very low level of education, as they were expected to work as manual laborers and domestic servants. Medical experts have noted a high incidence of depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and suicide among the Stolen Generations. So for their families, Many parents never recovered from the grief of having their children removed. Some parents could go on living without their children, while others turned to alcohol as a coping mechanism. So the removal of several generations of children severely disrupted indigenous oral culture, and consequently much cultural knowledge was lost. Many of the stolen generations never experienced living in a healthy family situation and never learned parenting skills. In some instances, this has resulted in generations of children raised in state care. And now it gets to what has been done about this. So in 1995, the Australian government launched an inquiry into the policy of forced child removal. The report was delivered to Parliament on the 26th of May, 1997. It estimated that between 10% and 33% of all Indigenous children were separated from their families between 1910 to 1970. The report, Bringing Them Home, acknowledged the social values and standards of the time, but concluded that the policies of child removal breached fundamental human rights. The Keating government commissioned an inquiry into the stolen generations, but the Howard government received the report. Howard's government was skeptical of the report's findings and largely ignored its recommendations. So stop and think, losing the ones you love most. What would you do if one day the police turned up to your home and took your children away simply because of the color of your skin? How would you feel knowing you had no way of getting your children back and no higher authority to appeal to? Imagine if one day you spoke with your parents and government officials came and took you away to live with strangers and told you that you had to learn to live, eat, speak, and dress differently than you were used to. How might that experience continue to affect you throughout your life? Almost every Indigenous family has been affected by the forcible removal of one or more children across generations. Many people, families, and communities are still coming to terms with the trauma that this has caused. Okay, so that was my last thing. And the reason why I chose this one is that when I read this, it literally just felt like I was reading the story of the Americas. You know, they took the children, told them to discard the language, discard the customs, told them they were something else, you know, their families, their parents are dead, they're long gone, and this is who they are now. And yeah, it just felt like deja vu. But, you know, it's interesting here, you know, they said they had, you know, let's know education, they made domestic and indentured servants of them. Again, this just feels like the Americas to me, because you don't hear anything about how they came to Australia from Africa in chains and then they got made into slaves, and it doesn't say any of that. So, and the reason why they can't do that to these people's stories, because enough of these people still remember who they are, so they can't write them into that script. That's the only difference between Australia and the Americas, is that, you know, they segregated themselves straight away for the most part from these people, and so the languages, the customs, and, you know, that connection that they got to the land and the earth and the spirit still is still there. So they can't put Kunta Kinte on them. I mean, in my opinion, you know, they can't put Toby in Australia. It's not going to work because those people still speak the language. They still know who they are. They still got tribal names out there that they go by. They still live off the land. So you can't put 12 years a slave into the Australian story. It's not going to work. The only difference with the Americas, it was more relentless. They really went hard, you know, in overtime and took no days off and scrubbing and erasing everything out of the picture.
But, you know, they're still doing it right now. Because you know, the whole article that you read, parts of it reminded me of the King Philip tour when you're breaking down how they took away the children, re-educated the children. Then you remember the live that you did when you were speaking of the Chinese internment camps, the re-education camps, right?
Yeah.
It reminded me of also that as well. And now if you fast forward to today with the whole COVID-19 thing and the HR 6666 bill that will give them all sorts of loopholes to come into your house and take your children. Not only that, all sorts of loopholes that if they do decide to open back schools, to use it as a means to take your children.
Right.
Yeah.
Check it out. I mean, right now, what, 2-3 years ago, ICE had already started to do that. Right? They already started to put so-called immigrant children in cages, right? Starving them, right? They're not bathing and all kind of things. They already started that.
Oh, wow.
Right? Just think about it. And then we just got a screenshot, right, in which they're saying that all people who are in the States now on student visas will have to go home by September.
Wow.
Right. So, we can try and verify that more, but I mean it's not something that's coming. It's happening right now.
Yeah. And they're using each area as a testing ground. All right, look, the first thing they had to do was destroy the economy, right? And where Brother Kurimeo is, the economy got hit real hard, right? Costa Rica, Venezuela, the economy got hit real hard. Then the next thing that they had to do is, by destroying the economy, is to slowly but surely starve the people while they take over the agriculture of the land, right? This is all eugenics. So I don't want people to think, well, eugenics is just an attack on us, it's just an attack on people. No, they have to take away your resources. Now look at what the governors and the mayors in each state are doing now. They shut down the mom and pop stores, which makes up 66% of the economy, right? These are the stores that they shut down, but they left the big box stores who are with the agenda. The big box stores whose founders, whose CEOs all fund eugenics open. Those stores could be open. You could go into those stores. You could go shop. You could do whatever you want into those stores. But when it comes to the barbershop, when it comes to the hair salon, when it comes to your little corner store, when it comes to your little restaurant, the family-owned restaurant, John, Ricardo, Antoine, and they have their restaurants. You can't no longer go sit into the restaurant to go have a good time, drink a beer, so on and so forth. Wow. They shut them down, or they tell you that it's limited amount of people that can be in the restaurant, or outside of the restaurant, only 6 people and 6 feet apart, right? This is all eugenics. Yeah.
Right now, here in the island, right, certain places, and if you're going to subject yourself to a temperature test that they're going to do this infrared thermometer pointed at your forehead, you can't enter. They're barring your entry. If you're not allowing them to spray this foreign substance on your hands, they're barring you from entry. And they've shut down homes and certain industries so long now that it's plain to me that what's going to happen is that they're going to be shifting the balance of power of things on a whole, because it has destroyed certain businesses on the island, right? Normal everyday people like you and I, who are just honestly gaining a living, being unable to do so. I'm sure many cook shops and all of those places are unable to reopen now because they've gone too long and they're not gaining any funds, right? So this is going to then now open up property as well. So people who couldn't pay their taxes and all of those things, their property is going to be liable to being purchased by another man. Their cars will be repossessed, right? Their furniture, their houses will be repossessed.
Yeah.
And so the highest bidder, right? So it's happening worldwide.
You mentioned even for those who work for other people, some people have been laid off, some people have been fired. Lots of people have lost income, and so they as well stand the liability or the risk of losing their property.
No, but that's what's going to happen. And then the rich man who has the line of credit that is endless and this and that, he's just going to come in, make an offer to the bank, right? Because there's prospectuses for all of these things, right? That any potential so-called investor can just peruse and see what has been repossessed and what is due to be repossessed, and he can pick his choice and he can pay, right? And it gets taken from your home and there's a big rental car business and paid again, rich again. That's what's happening right now.
Exactly. Brother Kurimeo, would you like to break down what's happening and what's going on to where you are also?
Yeah. Yeah, basically, well, Costa Rica has always been a haven for these elite. They abolished our military back in '48 because the military was going to take out our dictator, which is looked at as a hero today, because supposedly he took out the military to focus on education, and really this hasn't helped us at all. But the real plan was to take out the military because they were about to do a coup état and take him out. And like we have Nobel Prize winners here, presidents supposed to be peace and Central America and all that. That's all. They're part of fraternal orders. They work together, and anything that the U.S. does, especially when it comes to like the democratic kind of like people who are running MSN, CNN, and
Mm-hmm.
we only get CNN in Espanol or Spanish, mostly. So we only get one side of we get a biased version of what they want us to assume is going on in the U.S. So over here, like they try to do in the States that Democrats are for what, Spanish and so-called Negroes, and they fall for it here. Anything that gets pushed within the U.S. When it comes to an agenda, it gets pushed here like even more. Like cases will numbers are going up and down here. There was never really serious until the second wave again. They needed to create the second wave, and all of a sudden numbers went up at the same time as in the States, when we've been in lockdown since March and it shouldn't be spreading at all. Like they closed down our beaches. All this is a tourist country. This is where we live off, and a lot of jobs got terminated. And so that's creating a big economic problem right now, which Darkman was saying eventually is going to have an effect on what's going to happen here in a couple months. But they purposely are doing this, man. And I don't know people that have it. I mean, there's I guess they're isolated and stuff. I don't know, but now it's all over the capital, and now they're forcing us to wear the mask everywhere. And it's really crazy because it's just basically what's they're pushing on us from the States. It's not really this is it's a new world order. It's not a U.S. It's not North America. It's not the Americas. It's all over the world, and wherever these people have their fraternal orders established and their people there, that's what they're doing, and it's the same here. And people here are honestly, I hate it, but yeah, our people here are very they're followers, and they just believe everything. Even though they know everything here is corrupt, they still believe the same people that they keep catching that are corrupt. They anything the news says, they keep voting for the same people. Our last 7 candidates for presidency, which was last year, they were all related. They all come from the same line. So people will say, "Oh, yeah, we're all related." That doesn't mean anything. That's how the people are here, and they'll fight you, man. They're all scared. They're asking for the vaccine, and it's scary, man. And there's a lot of us that are awake here, but the majority just don't even do research, don't even do anything like what Americans would do, or they just follow and believe whatever. So yeah, it's I think it's really bad, but eventually, I for me, I always deep down, I'm gonna get spiritual. Deep down, they can do whatever they want. They're not in control.
Yeah, yeah. That we leave that to the Most High Creator. That great spirit. The ancestors, and the whatever power, the powers that we have also within ourselves. Now, you mentioned, that all the leaders in your country are related, right? Bloodline thing. Now, the folks pay attention to even here, in what they call the state. Majority of the presidents throughout history are all related to each other, right? If you also pay attention to not only here in the states. Wait, who's that? All right, that's you. I'm gonna mute you a little bit. All right. All right. So if you also pay attention to even here in the states, you'll see that almost 98% of the presidents here are all related. Now, if you look at now New York. New York now has Governor Cuomo in New York. When you look at Governor Cuomo in New York City, right? When you look at Governor Cuomo in New York, you see then that his father did 3 terms, right? And then you go back and you trace back his lineage, you'll see that they too are related to an elitist, what they claim to be these elitist class of people. So people, even in on the island of Zamaka, what they call Jamaica, corporate paper, right? On corporate paper, Jamaica. If you just research your leadership, research the people that you think you're voting into these positions, and you'll see that this whole thing has been rigged. Now, the reason why there's no karma coming back to these people is because they say something, they put it out there in the atmosphere, and you fall for it. But it's not them to tell you, oh, this is fake. It's for you to have done the research, or you to actually know what's going on in the political structure of this corporate or any corporate government, right? This is why there's no karma on a spiritual level of how it's supposed to come back right away on them. It doesn't come back immediately until people start waking up, and people sometimes wake up in spaces and not at the same time, sometimes together, or you will need key people to wake up so that the information can get out there. Now, Cormier said something also very interesting, that it's the Democratic, they're more so getting like the Democratic news out there in where he's at. And it's the same thing with the islands. It's more so the Democratic news. Now, the reason why that is because eugenics was created by the Democratic Party. Okay? And you go back throughout history. This is going back to Socrates, Plato. This is how far back this stuff goes, though. If anyone has studied extensive portions of history. All right? So we'll Kapatsa, were you finished with your full presentation or no?
Yeah, that's everything from me.
Okay. But Brother Lacono, would you wanna go?
Yeah, sure. I don't mind, man. Going to eugenics. I mean, if you look at Parrot plays a couple of touches with Australia, and they don't really show. Well, to my knowledge, they don't really show the rest of the people in the Americas what other people look like around the world. They keep you focused on Africa. For example, there's the original Chinese people that's brown. We don't get to see them on TV. We see the hybrid versions of these people moving about. Whether it's in North America, or, England, or in the islands, you see the hybrid version of them. You don't see the original people who look like who are brown skin or melanated or carbon. You don't see them. You don't see the Jawa people. The Sentinel people. They don't show you these people. They're not African.
Yeah.
That's what they do. That's what they do. Go ahead, that way.
No, I'm glad that you mentioned even with the Jawa people, right? Because if anyone knows the Jawa, they're the East Indians, right? They're the ones that they hide them, but they don't hide them. They hide them. They took them off the mainland and put them on a little island, right? On the little islands, and they turned those islands into a park for tourists and folks to go and view them as if they are zoo animals, right? Because of their complexion, they say that the wool hair, dark skin complexion of people, right? So y'all have to just research the history of the Jawa people, right? And also Sentinel Island folks. But Sentinel Island folks, though, I don't know if they've managed to get on the island of the Sentinelese, because they kill anybody that tries to come on that island. They're not having it because they saw what happened to the Jawa people as well. But man, eugenics is international. It's worldwide people. Like sometimes it's the simplest of things. Like when they're telling you this 6 feet apart thing, it's social engineering all the way around. That's anti-socializing, pretty much, because how are you to unite? How are you to find yourself a companion? How are you to find yourself your wife, your soulmate, if you have to get used to being 6 feet apart? You have to get used to always consistently wear a mask outside. Now, Kurimeo said that they shut down the beaches, but doctors will tell you that viruses die within 30 seconds within like 90-degree weather. So why would you then shut down the beaches, right? Why would you then have people that live in tropical environments consistently wear a mask? Brother American Arawak, you want to chime in?
I fell off the thing just now. But yeah. Even the other day I went into a gas station and I was asking the teller, the store, I don't know if it's the manager or the teller or whatever. But anyway, I went to pay for the gas over the counter. But I had the mask around my neck because I don't really put it over my face like that. If I put it on my face, I put it right over my mouth, but I don't cover my nose. So I decided not to put it on, even when I enter the gas station, even when I enter the store. And dude was like, put your mask on. I was like, is there a law that says I have to wear a mask? He just looked at me and said, well, if you don't put your mask on, I can't serve you. So I'm like, what? You serious? No, I can't serve you. So I'm like, well, if you could show me the law, I'll certainly put it on. He said, well, that's the law, the state law, the government of the state said that. So I'm like, okay, so where's the law? Show me the law. And he started getting irritated, you know what I'm saying? So that goes to show you how illiterate and just the way people think. They don't question anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I asked him, so Dartman, I took this from you. So I asked him, if I don't wear this mask, will you get a fine? He said yes, and he don't want to get fined. So I realized, like, okay, so they're using the businesses against us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The wider public. They use the businesses to get to us, to have us to submit to wearing a mask or wearing whatever they want us to wear, just to say, okay, if we don't have this, we can't get this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an indirect way of subjugating our people, especially. Because since our people is the ones who mostly go out and shop, it's really an attack on our people.
Yeah.
To this madness, you know what I'm saying? So, people gotta really see what's going on, see it for what it really is, and it's really bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a direct attack on our people, really, really and truly.
Now let me, Lacona, right? Are they like sanctioning the businesses where you're at right now? Are they fining them if people go in there without wearing a mask?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I can't speak on it. Maybe, I don't know. To my knowledge, businesses are still allowing people to walk in without no mask.
Wow, that is something new. Because Kurimeo, where you're at, are they doing the same thing too? Are they fining businesses if folks go in there without wearing a mask?
Most likely, I don't know in detail, but they have to. It is enforced. They will get in trouble if they don't do it. So most likely.
Okay. Now the reason why I ask is I'm going to go back to brother Alex and sister Malkia, right? Because they mentioned something else also that's very important, that they're now scanning faces in the islands now, right? That's what they're trying to implement that here on the mainland, but they haven't done it yet. So they're experimenting with the islands, and the reason why they're experimenting with the islands, they're experimenting with South America, is because of the political structure. The political system is it's openly more corrupt there, and they know that the politicians won't hesitate to use the military against their own people, right?
No, but X, I must say, it is even much older than that.
Oh.
It ties into the same eugenics that this life is about. Because what a lot of people don't know is that one of the first mechanized tests concerning eugenics took place in Jamaica in St. Elizabeth in 1921.
Oh.
And it was a precursor to the Nazi system that they used to rank the people who they had in the concentration camps, because IBM had that contract as well, right? So IBM tested out their system. You see the system where the so-called Jews have the numbers tattooed on their skin?
Yes.
Yeah, that system. So that numbering system and the means of storage, it was computerized, and IBM had the contract to make it happen. So they tested it in St. Elizabeth first, because remember that a portion of Germans were taken into St. Elizabeth. What they said was
Hello?
eugenics. Hello?
Yeah, you chipped out there for a minute, but go ahead.
Are you hearing me clearly now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was
Oh, he was good. I heard him everything.
Same eugenics thing. It was a racial mixing experiment when they sent the Germans. They wanted to see how they would mix with the surrounding population, the local indigenous population, right?
Yeah.
So that system was then tested after, I believe, the Germans came in the 1870s or the 1880s, and then the test was run in 1921. So you see, they gave at least 30 years in which for all the matter of mixing that they wanted to take place took place. So the experimentation in the island has a long history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it harkens back to the same eugenics movement that we're talking about, because remember, the Irish were the first people that were exiled to the island during the time of British occupation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what was happening in the 1650s was the War of Three Kingdoms. And at that time, Cromwell was attempting to take over of all of the British Isles, which included Ireland, of course, Scotland and so-called England are on the same landmass, but, the different jurisdiction, the tribal jurisdiction of Scotland and Wales, and so on and so forth. All of the people who resisted Oliver Cromwell when the war was over were exiled to the Caribbean, in particular Barbados, Montserrat, and of course Jamaica, right? So that is why we love Guinness so much. That is why we eat rock bun, and that is locally, commercially produced bun, spice bun and cheese. Mm-hmm. That's an Easter thing. That's Irish. That's an Irish tradition, right? All corned beef and cabbage, right? The whole concept of corned beef and loving how Jamaicans love cabbage is coming from the Irish roots. So what they were surprised to find is that the Irish had such an affinity with the local original population. And it fascinated them that people who they considered so different would be so willing to live together and to even intermingle or mongrelize, as the term was that they use, those races, right? Mm-hmm. So that was what they were testing, and they also wanted to test the Maroons, but of course they couldn't go up into the hills and do that nonsense. They wanted to
not to cut you, but you just used that term. You said mongrelized. That's what you said?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. The reason why I'm asking, because even I was one of them that you will say those Mongols and so on and so. So would you or Brother Kurimeo would like to go more into that word and what the word actually means? The history.
No, mongrel like a dog, like mongrel dog. That's important.
Oh, mongrel. I thought it's about well, I guess it's the same thing, because when they say Mongol or Mongolians,
kind of, yep.
Yeah.
No, man, I call you mongrel dog, like that, or they say mutt.
Oh, okay, that's what you're talking about. Oh,
not a pedigree.
It's like a really bad. Yeah, it's like a really bad way of saying somebody who's mixed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly,
all right.
But know, these are the words that the British use. You understand?
Yeah.
And you have to remember that the British are a very terse and hard and disgusting set of people when it comes on to like insulting others, and you know, they have this dry way of doing it that's really dismissive, you know.
Okay.
And so they use these really debilitating words, you know, and it even transferred into, you know, Anglo-Saxon America,
Yeah.
right? Because that was the beginning of the whole Ku Klux Klan and the white supremacy movement. Remember, you know, that the Isles, especially Jamaica, for example, had the same governor as North Carolina.
Yes.
Right? So the policy that was implemented here on the island was always a test for the implementation of policy on the larger mainland. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is the same as with legal policy. You know, you can actually put laws side by side during the same time with the laws of Jamaica and the laws of Carolina and even Virginia, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? They were one and the same. Right? So it's a long history of experimenting on us, right? Long history. And it will not stop until the people put their foot down and say, this is who we are, right? This is what we want. We know that we own the island of Jamaica because, or the archipelago, right? And even the wider Americas,
Yeah.
right? Because the first thing that they want to teach you in school when they're talking about history is that the original people died out.
But even when you talk about the territory of Jamaica or territory as West Indian and American people in general, you know, a lot in history has to be taken into consideration. For example, the Cayman Islands used to be a part of Jamaica's territory. Turks and Caicos as well. You know, a lot of our territory was wider. It's just over time, you know, they have ceded more and more to try to divide us.
Yeah, and it's not just that, but you know, we need to delve deeper. We need, as a people, right, a people of the Americas, to delve deeper into these political and historical ties that we have with one another, because it might be said that joining of Cayman Islands and Jamaica and all of this is a colonial aspect. But how are we so certain? Because we see where the U.S. corporation has openly admitted in law that their legal structure, their political structure, was based off of an aboriginal structure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They've admitted this in their law.
Their constitution.
In their constitution.
Give credit.
The very basis of eugenics is all about experimenting with the Aboriginal genetics, the Aboriginal belief system, and the Aboriginal environment. And I'm going to go over some things soon and start reading through some pages of some books and show you guys. But before we do that, let me ask everyone on the panel, right? How has eugenics affected the environment that you are in right now today, as far as not even just the behavioral pattern of the people, but the culture itself, historically, up until this present day? We'll start with Brother Kurimeo. Brother, I don't think he's hearing me. All right, Brother Lacona, go ahead.
Hey, sorry, bro.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
What was the question?
Bro.
Sorry, brother.
Yeah, so I was saying, how has eugenics affected the environment that we now live in, and the behavioral pattern of the people within the environment that we live in now, today, even throughout history up until this present day?
Wow, that's a deep question. I mean, like if you study the eugenics thing, and this is kind of like what you were saying, that this is what they needed to do to implement their whole hijack of start classifying people and determining, you know, who's more worthy and who's not, and who doesn't, who shouldn't have babies, who shouldn't be in control. I mean, I think that we're still feeling the effect right now. Most of these early white supremacists and all that, they're all eugenicists. I mean, Walter Plecker's involved in that. You know, I think that these same people are same people who were passing these laws, you know, and the statute laws, and you know, like making it harder and harder for people of color, you know, to basically be successful and come up in the world. And you know, they made sure they needed to do the eugenics thing. They also, it was a depopulation thing. You know, they were making a lot of the what they would call minorities, you know, not be able to have babies and all that. And you know, this is history. I think it has more effect than what people realize that it did. I mean, that's a deep question. I don't know how. I think that individually, people should study more eugenics and that period, and you know, they'll understand what we're trying to say.
Yeah, most definitely. Brother Lacono?
When I look at the eugenics, me being from London, and the culture you're talking about, I see that from outside looking in, you know, the cultures has pretty much been all the same, submerged into one. What do I mean by that? I mean, beside West Indians speaking patois, you know, yeah, everybody else, like other foreigners, for example, like the Chinese or Africans, you know, everybody from the Eastern Hemisphere has come over now and actually started speaking our language. It's the common language now. I mean, since we come here, we made our, you know, we made patois popular, basically, you know, and now everybody's speaking our language. Everybody is has assimilated into our culture. Everybody wants to make dance or reggae music. He's not from our hemisphere or from the islands, you know.
Okay. Go ahead, brother.
Okay. The culture with our people in London, they will say they're African only because they learnt this in schools and these things. But they will be participating in Amerindian Carnival, you know, we have in England that we brought over from the islands. So the, you know, people know, but they don't really know because they're not taught this, you know. All they know is what they've been taught by you know, by these type of people who's viciously misleading them, you know. So they can take their rights away from them because they don't know who they are and these type of things. But I mean, they've been testing, you know, us, you know, with genocide and these type of things, you know, from time, because you know, want to depopulate us so they can get their land and these type of things.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. American Arawak, what say you, brother?
Well, over this small town, it's a small town here I live in. I'm saying what I've seen thus far is the forced assimilation. Even when you're trying to express that you are who you are, or I am who I am, and I am, you know, sticking to my ancestral ways, but for some reason you have the people, because when you live in an environment where the majority of people is not of your stock or of your lineage, or the majority of people you surely know they are most of them is foreigners. They come and they put their way of life over the original ways of life, over this specific area, and then now it's like you see that you adapt or you die. You know what I'm saying? So all I'm saying is it's a situation of forced assimilation. Even you express when you're trying to express that you're not the same as everybody else, it's like they tend to disregard. So because I have to keep reminding them every now and then, you know what I'm saying, which I shouldn't have to be doing, because you already established and already put it in the public to let them know who you are and where you're coming from. But it's like they have this slick way of behaving, like, okay, we see that, but this is what we need. We need a driver's license, even though you already expressed that you're not state property. They put you in that, they always put you in a situation where you have to pull for a fictitious instrument just to conduct business. So things like those are it's a profound thing that they did, you know what I'm saying? And it's almost like your voice is not heard if you don't keep reinforcing who you are, you know what I'm saying? So it's very important for our people to realize that the culture is all they got, and they should, talk to the elders and find out where, the practices that they used to do and all that stuff, and try to bring it back, because, they totally decimate, how we used to live on a everyday. Like, for example, me growing up, the way I grew up, the things I learned, I don't see it anymore. It's completely gone. It's completely, if I don't teach it to my children, it's like it never exists. And then they know they have to pick up a book that now is written by a colonizer, a foreigner who know nothing of the history, and they're gonna put their own twist and their own narrative on it, and that totally allude what we are. You know what I'm saying? So it is important for us as the people who know the roots, the little that we remember, to bring it forward. And I'm saying, and teach it to our children, or else forced assimilation is gonna wipe us out completely.
So
mentally, physically, all of that.
So you're saying that once one cannot identify with any form of ancestral lineage, any form of ancestral backgrounds as far as culture, spirituality, then
right. And it's important. I mean, why we have to adapt to all this stuff when we already had our ways? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if they're gonna say adapt or die, who's proposing that? Who's saying that? Can they put that in writing and sign to it? You know what I'm saying? And attest to it. So in case something happened to you or your family, you hold them accountable or liable for what they say. You know what I'm saying? But when we ask these questions, them to sign, like, for example, I went to the DMV and I was talking to the supervisor for the DMV about giving me a exempt type of plate, so I don't get harassed, just in case I start to get.
Yeah.
Again?
They do have those.
Yeah. So, for example, I'm gonna show you. I went trying to get this because I don't want to get harassed. You know what I'm saying? So I was hoping that they would have it to provide it for me and stuff. But when I go there, I have to do all this explaining. It's like they were looking. The lady was just literally looking at me like, "What am I saying?" If she's a supervisor, I had to look at her. And just intelligently say, "Well, it's nothing wrong if you're ignorant, but you should learn the law." And she take it as an offense. You know what I'm saying? But these are the things I'm telling you. It's like when you're trying to assert who you are, it come off as maybe they're looking at you like, you live back in the 50s, or you know what I'm saying? So we all have our part to play, because if we continue to vote for these people who have no interest in us, in our needs, in our culture, we are just aiding and abetting in our demise.
Yeah.
And I continuously saying it to these people here on the mainland, especially North America. If you think your actions don't affect us in the Caribbean and on the mainland and the South, you gotta check check your mental, because when you vote for people or you put them in power, you are aiding and abetting in them to terrorize our people. in the islands. You know what I'm saying? Because you give them the upper hand to now come in as they like, as they will, to manipulate or dictate to the islands governments, you know what I'm saying, and call the shots to destroy us or affect our way of life. For example, one other eugenics movement I'm seeing is the LGBT thing. They're pushing it on our island people, on our island brothers and sisters, and pushing it on us to accept it when it's clearly not our way of life. But no, we should accept it. It's like, I don't know if you know what I'm going with this.
Yeah,
I'm saying,
so let me
we always have to accept their way of life. What about our customs, what we're trying to maintain? It's all about adapting to their ways. We don't need to adapt to their ways. We don't need to participate in their politics. We don't need to. We just need to be separate and live with the earth. You know what I'm saying? That's all we're asking for. We don't want to assimilate, because we see what assimilation has done over the years. It's completely it's destructive, mentally, physically, and spiritually, because they want you to do away with your customs. They want you to do away with you know, what grandma taught you. They want you to do away with just the basic things, the basic way of life. You must take up their way of life, which is just completely destructive and going nowhere. So that's all I'm saying. It's like we as the first people of the land, or the original people, it makes it harder for us when the ignorant ones don't want to learn or don't want to listen, because they're affecting us. Their decisions affect us, because you put a people who have no love for our people in charge of you know, a corporation that has tentacles everywhere, and then that corporation is going to slow poison everybody.
Now, look at this too, right? Yes, you have those who are part of the corporation that votes in these political people that runs the corporation, right? Now, look at folks that we say are our people. Look at the millions of dollars that they pull in yearly, probably monthly. Look at how they, even when you go on social media, you see them with these big fat stacks of 50s and hundreds. And if like platforms like ours, Kurimeo, Lacono, American Arawakan, Kappa Hot Step, right? Brothers and sisters like Brother Alex and Sister Malkia, right? Folks like us who are teaching certain things, teaching the history, the ancestry, the in all aspects, right? If we had more platforms like ours out there in the world now today, I think that the younger generation who you see spending these money recklessly will unite and come together and formulate some form of business mindset to where they can formulate a company, right? And put together to where they'll invest back into each other. Now, let's get out of the business mindset and go to the ancestral mindset, the tribal mindset. If folks like us formulated a society, right, where we are all about restructuring or rebuilding back not just the ancestral ways of living, in more of a sense as far as the family bond, the spirituality, the education system, even how we are educated. That right there will be such a powerful thing, because it countercombats these things to where, all right, you wouldn't have to go to the DMV and to literally have to try to convince these people to give you an exemption plate, right? So that you can have to operate your means of transport on these highways and byways, right? That is a right that is supposed to be expressed and freely given by the Most High Creator, that great spirit. So you shouldn't have to convince these people of your right to travel freely, right? Now, if we are a part of a society that we created and brought back, because this is how it has to be. These people are creating their own society through these corporate constructs. If more and more of our people got out of the corporate construct and created back more and more tribal societies. And we united these societies one with each other, right? You'll see where the pendulum shift, the power shift will come back to the people. And we wouldn't have to keep worrying about or looking over our shoulders to see if this policy officer is going to come and try to mess with us. Because it's one thing to say some of these people don't know, but when you realize that you get a hold of their handbook, you realize that they do know and they're just corrupt, right? Now, here's what I have to ask Brother Kurimeo, right? How important is culture, ancestral culture? How important is understanding and learning one's ancestry to counter combating these things that are happening today?
Yeah, I think I mean just knowing, I mean just the situation that we live in today where most of so-called dark-skinned Americans think they're African. Automatically, they never really cared to know about the history here. They never cared to even do their genealogy. They never cared to want to know anything more other than the Nubian kings and all this great stuff from Africa and stuff. And it's very important to know your culture because there's certain things in your life that you do personally and certain habits, certain characteristics you have that might, go back to a specific people or tribe or culture. And, it might help you understand who you are and a lot more. And knowing your culture, meaning knowing that if you're from here, I mean, you would have never been okay with this whole dominion they have over you, your people, your land, your whole culture, because you always thought you came from somewhere else and you didn't care. You just dealt with it and you accepted it, and you was like, okay, well, we're never going back over there because deep down you weren't from there. You never really wanted to go over there. You were never interested to go over there. Then it's for a reason, So I think that, I mean, that's a very broad question again, but I think people definitely need to understand that culture tells you who you are and why you like certain things, why you don't like certain things. Everything, your environment, oh man, your talents, your skills, your past memories. I mean, your ancestors speak through you, and if you don't know who you are, then you're not even listening to them. I don't know. I mean, like, it's a very deep question, but I think it's very important for people to understand the culture, and that's the reason we're in this situation today, because you didn't know your culture and you allowed all these foreigners to tell you who you are and tell you how to live in your own land.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Let me just say this, brother. It doesn't matter what anybody say out there. You are our brother. We stand with you, right? We are one people. United we stand, as they even put in the chat. United as one people, born free, on a big up, born free. And I just wanted to say that. Now to brother Alex and sister Malkia, the question also goes to you guys too.
Well, as Kurimeo said, it's a broad question, but why culture important? Well, when I was in high school, wrapping up high school, we did Caribbean studies, and culture was defined as the ways of life of a people. So clearly, without a culture, you are dead. Now, that is the reason why a lot of these, censuses and things like that require you to have quote-unquote tribal affiliation, right? Because if you cannot show who you are, then you are nothing, essentially, in their system. If you're not dancing a certain way, if you're not cooking a certain food, if you're not wearing a certain dress, because remember, they went around to every single tribe, right? Every single set of people, and documented their ways of life and things before they obliterated it using paper genocide and assimilationist means. So basically, now they put us in a situation where those of us who may have the ancestry, may have the scattered oral history, they now have a grading system in which if you can't show X amount, so I think the Smithsonian says 7 characteristics, right? And of course, as you know, the Smithsonian is the authority, right, in their system. And so the Smithsonian has, I don't have the list on hand right now, but I will check. There's 7 markers of indigeneity, and I'm sure many people don't know that, right? So if you cannot display these markers, right, you're going to be looked over. Now, this is the reason why culture is vital. Without culture, because culture, as I said, is the way of life of our people. Without culture, you're dead.
Also brings to another point in cultural appropriation being a tool or a weapon being used against us to extinguish us. Because then when they take our culture and mimic it and spread it and commercialize it, right, they extinguish us, because a culture is what unites a people. So it's our shared language, you know, or shared expressions, or shared worldview. You know, these are some of the things that unites us as a people, even in Jamaica, even for the people of Jamaica, you know, and the diaspora. These are the things that unite us. And I know that even popular culture is used as a tool as well, because popular culture is what is used, you know, to reflect the current culture, the what's happening in our society, the what's happening on the land, you know, how we relate, the different slangs that's being coined, the new songs that come up, you know, all these things.
But you know, Malkia brings up a funny point, because it's not everybody who is putting up with the cultural appropriation. Because I don't know how many people out there know the reggae artist Arawakan, right? Recently, I suppose he was sitting down listening to one of Miley Cyrus's songs, right? And he realized that she sang a line and said, "We run things, things don't run we." And he was like, "What the hell?" Right? And so he called up his lawyers, right? Got everything together, and they sued Miley Cyrus for $300 million for stealing that line out of his song. And she was like, "Oh, you know, it's not, he didn't make the slang. You know, it's a Jamaican slang." And the guy's lawyer said, "You're not Jamaican. Right? You're not Jamaican, so you worse to have any claim over it." Right? So Arawakan won that court case. He won the big money from Miley Cyrus. So it shows us that we need to take charge. We need to claim our culture. We need to grab it, right, and recognize as a people, the people of the Caribbean, the people of the Americas, right, South, Central, North, everywhere. We need to start looking into our cultures, and we need to start to claim them, right, because culture is our currency. Culture is our ID, right? So that's why culture is important. And that is the reason why we created the West Indian Tribal Society, because we feel like everyone needs to get a chance to learn culture and to get back to their roots. So we have to all come together in some organized way to fight for culture, identity, and history.
And to preserve the traditions.
Exactly.
Like, look at this. Look at this panel. Look at this panel, and we have brother and sister right now on the phone right now, right? We have Brother Kurimeo, Brother Lakono, Brother American Arawaks. You have I also, myself, Brother Alex, Sister Malkia, right? And we are all individuals that has come together in unity to do this panel right here, to speak on preserving the culture, to speak on the disparities of eugenics and the damages that it has caused, to speak on the importance of uniting, right? Now, if we can do this here, Why can't we do this all throughout? Everywhere we have people of the Americas, right? Why can't we do this all throughout everywhere there are people of the Americas, or even the tribes of the Americas come together and unite under one banner to preserve culture, to preserve our ways of our ancestral ways of life? Uh, let's start it off with Brother Lacono.
Yes. How do we preserve our culture? Well, you must acknowledge you have a culture. I mean, we do have a culture. If we didn't have a culture, people wouldn't steal it. I mean, that's the first and foremost thing, man. I mean, like carnival, for instance, that belongs to us. We bring that from from the islands, to England, and it comes from the islands. It comes from the Americas. Amerindians practice carnival, which is the Indians, the real Indians that practice carnival throughout the American continent. For us to know and how we can rectify this, I mean, for one that do know the history and do know the knowledge, and we know that there's other ones like we was once was who didn't know anything regarding our culture and stuff. We have to write books and these type of things, for children. So it starts with the children. That's where hitting it first. That's how we got to this point in at this point, because we relied on the schooling system. You understand? So we have to be in control of our destiny. If you want to change things, you've got to change it with a pen and being creative and using our talents, to help us to make a change. You understand what I say?
Yeah, man. All right, yeah, man. Makes sense. Makes sense. Brother Kurimeo.
Yeah. Yep. Basically, what the way I see it is that, and honestly, a lot of people do not see the rest of the people as their people or their family, and that's the main thing. So a lot of people from the States will not think that the West Indies people is their people. Anybody from Central South America, or anybody who might not look like them, their complexion or their features, so they automatically say, "Oh, that's not my people." So I mean, it's a human thing, right? Like we can't force people to like be righteous and stop thinking prejudice or stereotyping or just discriminating based on appearance. And unfortunately, it's the reality, and that's the basically how I see why we can't do this. But I also feel that there's actually more good people out there, and more real people that see past appearances and see the truth and the spirit and the love and the heart of people, and that's what they base their judgments on. So yeah, to me, it's just because certain bad apples are out there who, unfortunately, a lot of these bad apples somehow get platforms and get a big following because also they have a large following of these same people that are think just like them, and that's unfortunate, but that's how I see that.
Yeah, and they're very deceptive also. Very deceptive and very rude. Very rude. Brother American Arawak.
Yes, as I always say and I always state that Africa, what you call Africa now, right? Like to separate it, like okay, like as if North Africa is in Africa. It's the same landmass it's on, just like you have America as one landmass.
Yes.
And all her islands, you know what I'm saying, consisting of with all her islands. What I always saying is that if Africa have a diverse culture, a diverse phenotype, because everybody over there doesn't look the same. They do not look the same. People in North Africa doesn't look the same as people in, say, East Africa.
Yeah.
People in Sudan don't look the same as people in West Africa. So why is it you think it's not the same thing over here? You know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't be have diverse people over here, diverse cultures over here, with such a large landmass? You know what I'm saying? Even though in some instances things happen where a set of people came over here via say, the Spaniards, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They over here and they did adopt the culture. They did take on to the original people. But prior to even them who arrived, it was nevertheless diverse. We all have different phenotypes going from north to south. Okay, if one doesn't look like you, why would you say no, he's not me? Have you do you know their genealogy? Because unless you know that person's genealogy, you have no right to say that. Okay, that person could be Indian, just like you, and somewhere down the line, somebody mixed in, and because of that mixing, it just changed the way how your typical American Indian would look, or your original American would look. But that doesn't make him not American Indian.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Years of people mix, people mingle. So of course you will have. And what about the different tribes over here that mix in with each other? Nobody's talking about these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With different tribes mixing with each other that have the same complexion but different phenotype, you're gonna have a different looking set of people coming out of that stock. Okay, and that's gonna create a whole different look. But that doesn't make them not American. That doesn't make them not your people. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta come out of this box mindset. Even though we are on this panel, we all know who the culture bandits are. People who try to take on our culture and act like they're this and they're not that. And you know what I'm saying? But people are mixed.
Facts.
People are mixed regardless. But the problem I have with the people who the problem we have, the people who mixed in, the people who come and mix in with our people, their side of their family, their side of the line, they don't want to acknowledge that the people that they mixed in is the original people of the Americas. Yeah. So this is where the problem lies. When you have the people who came claiming to be the first people when they are not, and then putting the original on the back burner or shipping them over into Africa. So this is where the problem is. This is what we're trying to. This is where we're trying to have this is where we're pushing back. So this is where the pushback comes, where we gotta say no. We are still here. We are the original copper color people. However, we do have people. We do have family who's mixed, and we still love them like our own, or ourselves. But please don't hide us. Please don't push us away and say we come from across the ocean. So these are the things we are addressing and getting it in proper perspective so people could see it for what it really is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's just my take on it on that, where that's concerned.
Yeah, I totally agree with everyone. We live in a society today where you can't judge a book by its cover. And what I'm learning more and more is you have a lot of platforms out there that supposedly went so deep into the research, but they'll still look at another brother because maybe he's not as dark as them and say, well, you're not one of us, right? And those are things that we shouldn't even tolerate in any of our communities. And the reason being why I say that is that's always the scapegoat that they use when they're backed into a corner, when they got caught pushing something that was proven and shown to be false and to be deceptive. And now that everything is coming out the closet, they turn to the old trick in the book. Well, you're not one of us. You don't look like us. You can't talk for us. But when it comes out, when people start understanding the information, because people started going into their own genealogy, doing the research on their own family lineage, they realized that, well, you who are saying this person is not one of us, don't look like us, has been deceiving them this whole time. Now they say, well, if those who don't want to catch that drip right there, that piece right there of what was actually taking place, because now the person that was saying that, now, yes, I'm taking a jab, I got to take a jab, was the same person that came into my chat when we were talking about the seals and how to properly use your seal on your documents and what the seal means, or to have your own family crest or your own family seal created, was the same person that said, "Oh, I had mine for over 2 years now. I've been knew about that," but never once went on their platform. Probably until we started coming out speaking about it, never once went on their platform and was educating the people on the importance of the family crest, the family seal. What does it mean to not only the culture, what does it mean to also have certain forms of unification? How does that also that seal takes away power also from the corporate government over our tribal way of life, you know? So when you look back at it, the brother that you're saying don't look like us, when you compare the information from his platform to your platform, he was being more truthful than you, who supposedly look like us, right? I mean, look, I can't. My genealogy is different from other folks' genealogy, right? This is why we tell folks, focus on your bloodline, focus on your family history. This is one of the ways to counter combat false teachings. This is one of the ways to counter combat not only the process of eugenics, not only to instill back pride back into oneself, but to call a spade and to call people out on the bullshit when you start seeing it in today's culture, right? Now, with that being said, before I go into this book right here, let me just say, brother Alex and sister Malkia, is there anything that you guys want to say? Let me see if they're still there.
Yeah, man, we're here about that. It's the different tools that they've used against us to separate us. You know, they've made us as indigenous people in the different parts of the Americas, they've isolated all of us and nurtured a sense of insularity, right, in the culture, in which everybody is just focused on their particular area. So I know, for example, the Caribbean and the mainland, you know, that relationship isn't really nurtured, and the relationship among the different Caribbean islands, you know, there has always just been that stopping us from coming together, right? And I just do believe that we need to put aside all of those colonial tactics, those colonially motivated tactics that they use to divide us. You know, a lot of these things are just designed by the elite to divide us amongst ourselves. So I just want everybody to just look into the situation that's going around, that's going on now in the world. Look at history. Look at the different political dealings that have occurred in history and analyze them, and just realize that it has been their agenda to divide us. And even with fear is another tactic that they use, you know, to make us afraid, to make us believe that they are, you know, a show of force, so to say, you know, and these are a lot of people are paralyzed by fear. You know, they believe that, you know, that let's not even research that because, you know, everything is already, or there's no records for that, or, you know, let's not look into that because that's going to cause problems. You know, we need to all look into our histories and our genealogies. We need to know about ourselves. You can't begin to get to know you can't have any proper relationship with anybody if you don't know about yourself, right? Number one rule is you have to get to know yourself first before you can get to know anybody else. So we need to all look into our history.
Yeah, just to develop on that point, you know, one of the biggest tools of division that keeps us from uniting for a greater cause is actually language. For example, a great part of South and Central America the greater part, they now speak Spanish because of colonization. And we here in the Caribbean, mostly speak English. I mean, of course, you have Francophone, Caribbean, and you have the Spanish-speaking one. But, you know, we all speak different languages, so the history that we would want to be privy to is sometimes very difficult for us to access because, you know, first of all, growing up, most of the ways that they teach history or languages, unless you have like a natural affinity for it, you're not really going to become fluent because it's put forth in a boring way, right? It's structured in a way where, you know, it's all just academic, when in which you should be speaking to a native speaker, as they call it, you know, conversing with such an individual who has a total command that can give you even a cultural feel, and I'm sure that we'd learn quicker. But of course, that even a lot of the pivotal records are in different languages, and a lot of the historical texts that we would really need to access to see some powerful information are in different languages that we did not learn in school. So the thing is that we need to expend all our energy towards learning. Learning is vital. Learning law and learning history, those are vital. And even the structure of the language that you're doing your research in, it is vital that you learn that, right? Because right now, yes, records are being erased, but there's still a lot left.
But even culture is a way of life, you know, so you can't really fully learn a language unless you know the different elements that comprise the way of life of the people. So you find that in learning most of the languages in indigenous communities, it's really like food and medicine and plants and these things that and the tools that they use, these things that encompass their daily life, right? So if you don't have an understanding of the culture, then it's going to be difficult to even learn the language. So this is where, you know, learning everything, the entire way of life comes into play. This all is very important.
Right. And now, on our part, we just like to say that it is important that those of like mind come together and study law concerning organizations and organizational structure, right? For example, trusts. It's very important that our people get together and study trust law in groups, right? Create trust entities that can then create trust businesses. You know, we're not going to sit down and spoon feed everyone. You know, you need to read because you will see things that I wasn't able to see or that we weren't able to see because you have a different perspective, and then we should all be coming together to have those conversations. We need to let go of a backbiting and high school behavior. We need to realize that this immaturity is what they've bred into us using their mass media and all of these things. This infighting, you know, has all been bred into us using their mass media.
You see it reflected in the media, in all the movements, especially when you have a group of people gathered together. They all roast and demean each other, you know, and anybody with an opposing view is shunned, and that is you know, that is ingrained in the culture.
Yeah, so I mean, right about now, study how to put together a internationally recognized organization. But if you don't feel that you're up to that, right, we have gone ahead and tried to do what we can in order to help those who want our help, right? We've tried our best to create something tangible that in a short while people can actually become members of the West Indian Tribal Society. And we're hoping that for those who don't decide to go their own way and like what we do because we want people to see action, right? We like what we do and what we're about as a group, right? Then you guys can be a part of something that's going forward, you know? So, yeah, over to you, X.
Yes, yes. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see the screen, right? Let me, because it's not showing on my, okay. All right, so we're gonna go through a few pages of this book, right? And we're just gonna get it in as we go along. So this book, and let me tell y'all the name of this book. It's called Details Eugenics. Let me get the name. Matter of fact, let me give you guys the link of the book. All right, let me give you guys the link. Give me 1 second. Okay. That's the link. Go back into the book. So here goes. Those who seek to introduce a fresh policy into the regulation of human affairs must have clearly. Oh, before I get into it, Brother Lacona had to go. Brother Copper Hot Step, he's still in the chat, and Brother Lacona has some stuff to take care of. So I say honors to those two brothers for coming through also as well. All right, as y'all can hear, people are still letting off fireworks, yo. 3 months for 3 whole months. But anyway. Those who seek to introduce a fresh policy into the regulation of human affairs must have clearly before them what end they desire to attain by so doing. And if they wish to commend their policy to the majority, pay attention, they should be prepared to demonstrate that the end itself is desirable and that by the means proposed, there is some hope of moving towards it. There are some who would claim that the ultimate goal of eugenics is a patriotic one, namely to increase the commercial and fighting efficiency of the nation. Now, these are corporate terms, and speaking of commercial, they're talking about corporate businesses. They talk about the business world, okay? This also goes back to the birth certificate, your birth certificate. Now, if you look at your birth certificate, right, you'll see, well, born the year of, date of, so on and so. But then, again, you'll see also on the documentations, naming, say if it says you were born April 3rd, 1981, but then 4 years later you see another document that says the certificate of naming or something like that that says February 4th, 1985, which has nothing to do with the day you were born. Why do you need another set of documents 4 years later, right? That's because that birth certificate is a commercial document, something that is traded back and forth on the stock market. Now, this is the importance of eugenics, because even if they don't have you around physically, they still keep these documentations, these paperwork that they call birth certificates, which are really bonds, right? Or security bonds, security instruments that they trade on the stock market, which deals with the commercial world. Like the United States Incorporated is a corporation. Like like Jamaica is on the Security Exchange Commission's website. It is a corporation, which it tells you the Jamaica government is it's a corporation, right? These things deal with these documentations. These are also part of eugenics, because eugenics is about decreasing the number of the population, right? So physically, they're going to decrease your numbers by hitting you with a plague, some form of a disease, chopping you down. And when you go back historically through historical events, you see that through historical events, anytime colonization takes place, when they can't defeat you through physical warfare, they hit you with a disease. Now, if they can't hit you with a disease, they have to play on the spiritual, the psyche, the mind, which is what they're doing now today with COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 stands for coronavirus 2019. This is the year on the Greco-Roman calendar 2020. Why hasn't anyone made that clear distinction, that proper identification that, hey, this supposed virus was last year, but they hit you with so many fear tactics, so many fear mongering this year that you're not paying attention to that COVID-19 means coronavirus 2019 of last year. So you're walking around wearing these masks, all these things, right? Which is going to cause respiratory issues, cause you to drop down dead. Now that goes back to the commercial. It goes back to the birth certificate. Now you drop down dead. The birth certificate now also becomes a death certificate, which is also still traded on the stock market. Your mother, your father, they don't know how to go down to public records and declare that you're dead and then take control of that security instrument, right? They don't know how to do that. So who you think is going to take control of that? That very same governor, that very same mayor, because they have shares into the corporation that deals in the commercial world. So eugenics, they don't have to physically have you around because they got you around on paper. Okay, these are the portions of eugenics. Now let's keep going. All right. So eugenics is a patriotic one, namely to increase the commercial and fighting efficiency of the nation, right? We do not, however, intend to advocate it on these grounds, but would rather recommend it as a road to increased happiness for the human race, or at any rate, as a means of preventing much unnecessary misery, okay? Sanitation. Pay attention. Sanitation. Today they're telling you what? Wash your hands. Get the Lysol wipes. Get the Lysol spray. Hand sanitizer. Oh, if you go into the store, you got to be sprayed with hand sanitizer. We got to spray the solution on you. All right. Education. They shut down the school system. So that they know that by the time the agenda that they're willing to that they're employing, that they're implementing, that when that time comes, because we spoke about the history of how they have where they separate the children from the household and they take the culture out of the child, right? By re-educating back that child. Now, what's going to happen? We go back to school with your child. You already are allowing them to implement all of these policies because up here, it tells you policy. You see that? Commend their policy. Now, does anyone ever wondered what a policy is? Policy goes back to the commercial. It goes back to the corporation. Policies are for businesses, corporate constructed businesses. Now, on your birth certificate, you have the straw man name, that all capital name. That is the corporate construct. Okay, so now you fall underneath what these governors and mayors are doing as state property. You are a corporate construct. So this is why they're forcing you. They're implementing all these forcible policies, not law, but policies onto you because you are state property. You are property of the corporation. Now, damn near everything in this world today that we call a country is literally a corporation. Okay? All right, let's keep going. All right, so commercial and fighting efficiency of the nation. We do not, however, intend to advocate it on these grounds, but would rather recommend it as a road to increased happiness for the human race, or at any rate, as a means of preventing much unnecessary misery. Back down to sanitation, education, right? So when your child goes back to school, they're going to use that that supposed COVID-19 testing to test your child. Then they're going to pick and choose eugenics because they pick and choose who lives. They pick and choose who breeds to bring in a new generation into the world. This is eugenics. Okay. Now, for the people who they classify as poor class people, which is the indigenous man and woman who don't know that they have any form of indigenous identity or whom are wrongfully identifying with someone else's identity. For the indigenous man and woman of the Americas, whom call themselves Black, African Americans, Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina, right? All these different type of names, okay? When you add that Afro, that Black, that African American onto your title and claim that you're a descendant of the Eastern Hemisphere, you done said that you're a person without land, without culture, without nationality, without any form of identity, because the Eastern Hemisphere is not claiming you. If you have not noticed it by now, wake up. They're not claiming you. Now, what does that make you? Lost at sea. If that makes you lost at sea, one without land, one without any hereditament, right? You have no inheritance. You gave it up by identifying as a corporate construct to fall under policy. These governors and mayors know this. These secretaries, these ministers, they know this. Okay? This is a game.
Esau.
Exactly. This is a game that they are playing with you. All right? And because they know it's a game, you don't know it's a game. What they're literally doing right now, they're liquidating the corporation. This is what they're doing. They're liquidating assets of the corporation. You are the asset. This is what they're doing. This is the world that we live in today. And this is what happens to people who cannot identify with any cultural identity or who goes against nature and go against self. Like for folks out there who's been told, hey, you have American Indian ancestry. Hey, you are blood lineage to the brothers and sisters in the South and South America, to the brothers and sisters in the islands. And guess what? You are all of American Indian ancestry, or the original indigenous people of this hemisphere. And you're like, oh, nah, forget that. And you ride the Umar Johnson train and you want to do the shoemaker thing and shuffle your ass over to Africa. You done gave up everything that you were tied to here. You done gave up the Creator's law that governs you here. You done gave up your inheritance here. Now, because these people created that straw man with that birth certificate, everything that you gave up, they claimed it through your birth certificate, right? The reason why they could do that, because it all goes back to eminent domain. You gave up something, you no longer claim it, you put it as vacant. So now they came and they claimed vacant property, which is the land, right? The air for this land, the waters of this land, the animals of this land, okay? Which the Most High, the Creator, the Great Spirit left for you to take care of, for your ancestors that have passed it down to you. Why is he talking like this? When I go through more and more of these pages in the next book, you're going to see how it all ties into eugenics. Because they're going to use words like hereditary, and these things, and you must understand what these words properly mean, okay? For you to get how deep this is. So when folks is coming here and willing to really teach you that you come from the other side of the world and throw the slave passage story on you, right? That millions and millions of these people came over from Africa, and these were your ancestors. You must look deeper and say, but why are they so openly willing to teach us this if they so openly hated us all these years? Something has to be up, and what is up is this is your home. This is your inheritance. This is the soil that you are off. This is where you manifested. You were birthed up out of it. Well, the reason why I say that, because that's what happened with your ancestors. You are the lineage of your ancestors. Now some will say, but we're mixed. We still have some colonizer blood into us. So, but you still have the original people of this land blood into you too. Not telling you to be ashamed of either side of whom you are. I'm just telling you, respect the ancestors here. Respect the land, respect the culture, respect the people here. Don't come and try to forcibly force a foreign entity onto them, knowing that it means their destruction. Because you're trying to align your pockets with a green paper that goes back to, what's that money goddess? Mano Junita or Juno Manita, the money goddess. It goes back to that, right? Which is also goes back to the great harvest. We are in the times of the great harvest, all right? If folks ain't understanding, we are in the times of the great harvest where all sorts of beings are walking amongst us, and you are the medium, and you are contracting with these beings unknowingly. Like at birth, when you were brought into this world, your mama signed that birth certificate paperwork. She unknowingly contracted with whom? The entities that created that birth certificate. Who are you? You are the medium. You are supposed to learn now how to break those contracts, how to rescind those contracts. Because if you can rescind a contract in the physical, you could rescind a contract in the spiritual. This is why they don't want you to learn these things. All right. But let's keep going though. Sanitation, education, and the arts of medicine and surgery, to name some of the lines of progress along which mankind has moved during the last century. Let's go scroll up. Have essentially the same end. And they endeavor, and this is just the introduction, essentially the same end. They endeavor, and this whole book is written in double speech. Let me just say that to you guys. If you don't know what double speech is, it's a Masonic thing that all your leaders and stuff speak in. All right, double speech. They say one thing, but it absolutely means something else. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm going to get to page 12 at Q. I'm going to get to that, right? And page 25 says a lot. Essentially the same end. They endeavor to accomplish it by enabling each individual born into the world to develop the best that is in his nature, both of the body and of the mind. Pay attention. So that his life may be lived with satisfaction to himself and profit to the community, and that it may be unspoiled by accident or disease and unhampered by ignorance or vice. At present, the best that is in his nature is often a poor thing. Eugenics aims at making it a little better by whatever means may prove practicable. Now I'm going to read this, and y'all going to, but this is advocating saying that eugenics is a good thing. This is double speech. That's why these things you're supposed to learn. It's really not saying something good. It's literally telling you that you have a specific race of people who deemed themselves to be inferior through genetics, and they were looking to improve their genetics, and they traveled the world looking for the best stock of people from the East coming over to here to the Western Hemisphere. They wanted the most athletic people, which is here in the Western Hemisphere. Okay, so now when they came over here, they found what was perfect to them. So they already had mixtures of the East, and they decided, well, boom, this is what we're going to do. This is why in 1845, when all the coolies came over, I think about 2 million of them. 1845, coolies came over through. Was it the the British, remind me here, American Arawak, through the whatchamacallit.
Well, the British, because they had indentures, so they come through those agreements with the British.
Yeah. So, all right, so they came here in 1845, right? When they came here in 1845, it was the darker view ones that they sent over here in 1845 to show you how they practice eugenics. Now, they wanted them to come over here to mix in with the population over here, because at the end of the day, even though the lighter skinned ones was getting rid of the darker skinned ones and sending them over to the Americans, it was a plan. It was a plan to get them to still not only get certain amount of lands, but to also eventually intermix into the population. Once they intermix into the population, here, guess what? Look out, our child is of the East and the West, which means the Eastern daddy that wanted to colonize the East now has an excuse to be here because, hey, my child is of this land, my child is of the woman of this land. And this is how it starts. Okay?
Yep. That's exactly what.
And at the same time, they're improving their genetics. Okay? This is what happened to Hawaii. And you don't see no more people of the original Hawaiian look there anymore. Right? Now, that's history. But if you come along and this happens and you are intermixed or mixed, right? Still respect the others whom are here, the culture, the land. Don't still try to push, knowing that your other side, this is the goal, this is the agenda for them, to literally wipe out or minimize the genetics or harvest enough of the genetics as they can. Because what they do with the ones who are now biracial, don't think that, I'm biracial, I'm going to get away, they prefer me. No, they harvesting you too. because now this is why you hear them talk about the antigens for the coronavirus stuff to see if who's immune to what's happening. Whatever they hit you with it from last year. And they just wait until this year to see, because sometimes it takes a year for some results to come back. This is why they want to test everybody, okay? And they want to see who is more prone to fall to suffer from what they hit you with, and who more develops antibodies and a strong immune system regardless. And boom, that's who they're going to come after. So they're going to hit the biracial child first. Then they will come to the Negro child, right? And then this is how they're going to attack you. But out there in the public, they have to use colorist schemes to get you to keep going against each other. All right. This is eugenics. This is where now they're getting into the mindset, because they got you watching all these television shows. And when you look at the television shows, the darker view one is always pushed to the back. And they have the interracial couples, they have the interracial this, or they have the Caucasian face straight up front. Right. And they're telling you this white person, but you're not thinking, well, historically, white person or free white persons went to people of all complexion, right? So eugenics is all about psychology. You see what I'm saying? Now let's keep going. They endeavor to accomplish it by enabling and each individual born into the world to develop the best that in his nature, both of the body and of the mind, so that his life may be lived with satisfaction to himself and profit to the community, and that it may be unspoilt by accident or disease and unhampered by ignorance or vice. At present, the best that is in his nature is often a poor thing. Eugenics aims at making it a little better by whatever means may prove practicable. In this, it differs from and goes farther than the agencies it enumerated, whose efforts it seeks to supplement but not to supersede. Eugenics, scroll down. Eugenics form no homogeneous sect or party, recognize no common leader, are confined to no country, and differ widely in their methods and beliefs, are confined to no country. That means they go to any country they want and push this program, all right? Because all they have to do is get into the pockets of certain leaders. But now if you go back now historically, like we say the Jews, but we got to remember that they're originally Saxons. You see what I'm saying? But even before that, they weren't pale-faced Saxons. They were dark-faced Saxons.
Facts. Those facts, man.
Right? So we must understand where eugenics was originally created from. It was created from darker hue people who were trying to colonize other darker hue people. Okay? And whatever experiments that was being ran, and when what we now call the Caucasian population came into play, they contracted with them to come over here to the West to colonize the West. Then on the overall basis, it became a business, a commercial entity, indentured servitude, plantations, right? You go back to the 1620 New England Charter of William Penn, or the William Penn letters. It will clearly tell you that the plantations were set up for Caucasian folks to work, because they were trying to have a living to send back money to their family members and to the crown of England at that time. All right.
Yeah. So and William Penn's pops was also a governor in Jamaica too. His father was a governor, one of the first governor from Oliver Cromwell, was appointed by Oliver Cromwell as a governor of Jamaica.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
That's his father. His father. I'm talking William Penn's father.
Yeah. That's true. I know. Brother Kurimeo, you got anything that you want to say, brother?
No, I agree, man. What you were saying, man. Like, there's a lot of deep history that people really don't think about. Like, again, it's not black and white ever. It's more complicated than that.
Yeah. So, and that's the illusion of also eugenics, because you'll see what happens over time is the agenda is pushed by darker view people, right? and this a part of me really still feels like somewhere there is a darker view ruler somewhere that's actually ruling over all of this shit, everything that's going on. But some people say you're crazy, but man, oh man, when the day comes and I can prove that, oh man, game changer. But but seriously though, on a serious note here, you have to understand history, man, because throughout history, darker view people and Caucasian people united to fight injustice, right? Throughout history, darker view people and Caucasian people united to enslave people. This has always been history from ever since you could go back to the furthest portions of time. This is how the world always was ran, how the world still is ran. The only thing is the side that wanted to enslave people, that wanted to depopulate, that wanted to pick and choose who could bring forth a child and who cannot, they're the ruling class right now because the majority whom united, whose ancestors united to fight evil, lost their way. They were de-educated. They went into the corporate structured educational system and was taught falsehood, lots of fallacies, forgot about their ancestral ways. But the ones who kept and stayed the course are now the governors, the mayors, the senators, the presidents, right? These CEOs of these Fortune 500 companies, and they set it up to where they go back through the lineage and find the ones that still think like their ancestors did. And these are the ones that they put in positions. That's why when you see some Negroes here, you see some Caucasians here, you see what you call some Spaniards there, you see some Africans here. This is what it is. They're still looking out for each other. Don't mind that, oh, but they're fighting. Yeah, they're fighting amongst you, fighting in the public. Yeah. But privately behind closed doors, best believe these people are family. They're blood. They're not looking at it as a race thing. They need you out here in the public to look at it as a race thing. Okay. Brother Alex and Malkia, anything you want to say before I continue on? Wait, let me see if they're still there. Yeah, you guys still there?
I'm here.
Yeah. All right. So I was asking if anyone had anything that they want to implement before I move on.
Yeah, of course, as usual, it's pretty simple. People need to be more conscious, more aware, right? And people need to recognize that you're doing this research, gaining this information and thing, it's taxing. It's hard for us to do, right? Coming down here and doing hours for the lives and things like that. We do it out of love. We're not doing this for money because there really isn't any in it, right? Who's paying us to do what we're doing, right? And I just like to say, really, that I appreciate everybody on this panel and the information that everybody has put forward thus far, right? And
we give thanks for all the people out there who listen to us and who support us, right? Everybody out there that send us love. Just know that we love all of you now, and we give thanks for all the support.
And even though some of the things that we discuss here may be speaking about the topic of division and why we're divided and why we're in this oppressive circumstance, just know, that we're doing it so that people can feel the way that we feel and recognize that we're not doing this because we want anything from anybody. We want to be free. That's all we're doing it for.
And we want everybody to be free as well. Everybody deserves freedom. Everybody deserves rights. Everybody deserves to have a connection to their history and their heritage and their culture. So we just invite everybody to be on this journey with us.
Yeah, man. So we really want to add to everything. Just a little encouragement for everybody. Because a lot of these topics are kind of sad,
Yeah. All right, brother. All right, sister. Another thing before we go on. Eugenics is also the movement of taking out the records out of your hands and keeping it in their hands. You don't need someone else to hold your family records for you. Anything that belongs to you and your family, your kin, your bloodline, they're supposed to give it back to you, especially when you could prove it, right? Now, be careful when you're looking at some of these records because they do tamper with them. They'll change an A to an E, certain things like that, because there was a lot of name theft that was happening, that was going on. A lot of name theft that was going on in the islands, in the south, in the north. So be careful, okay? But yeah, we should be in charge of our own stuff. You know how asinine it sounds to hear, well, the Smithsonian is in charge of our documents. To hear, this Register General down here, they have our records, and we have to go pay them for our own shit to go view the records. We have to pay them. That's crazy, but that's eugenics. Is who controls the past, controls the present, and controls also tomorrow. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. Where were we? This party differs widely. Methods, beliefs, here present. Okay. So at present, let's start from top. At present, the best that is in his nature is often a poor thing. Eugenics aims at making it little better by whatever means may prove practicable. In this, it differs from and goes farther than the agencies enumerated whose efforts it seeks to supplement but not to supersede. Eugenists form no homogeneous sect or party, recognize no common leader, are confined to no country, and differ widely in their methods and beliefs, but they appear to the present writer to subscribe implicitly, right? If not explicitly, to a common creed, which may be outlined as follows. Each individual, as he passes through life to its end in death, derives his active qualities at each moment of whatever nature they may be from the interaction of two separate yet not wholly independent causes. Let's scroll down. The one may be called his inborn potentiality or capacity for development. Here we go. What does inborn mean? What is inborn? What does that mean? The way how they throw in these little simple words, inborn, and people probably just read through it, never went back to say, what does that word mean? Why would they put inborn and potentiality, right? So let's go into the etymology dictionary. Okay, we're going to go into the dictionary. Let's start pulling up the dictionary. Give me a second here, y'all. That's the Bouviers. What is the etymology? Let's pull this up. Whoa, what is going on here? What? Stop messing with me. Oh. You saw that, right? Inborn. Inborn. Old English, inborn, native to a place, indigenous, aboriginal. Look, eugenics. Be careful of the words. You see the words that they use? It shows you the targeted people. Now, what is aboriginal? What is aborigine? Copper-colored people. Who do they call in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary? Let's go. I know this is like, well, Darkman, we already know this, but not everyone knows this, right? This is to show you all around, just all around facts now. That's the word inborn. One word. So we have Aboriginal, original primitive, Aboriginal people of the first inhabitants of a country. The first. Aboriginal tribes of America. Aboriginal and original or primitive inhabitant. The first settlers in a country are called Aboriginals, as the Celts in Europe and Indians in America. Now, what is Aboriginal goes into Aborigines. Aborigines. Aboriginals, but not an English word. Oh, yeah, they just used to have they changed it. You see that? You see how they used to go back to the copper colored people of America?
Yeah. Type in American, right?
Yeah, it's American.
It's American now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's always American.
All right, let's go. Okay. It's been so long since I looked up this word. All right, American. Noun, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. Now, when you hear Europeans, don't think that they talk about Caucasians.
Exactly.
They talk about Negro Europeans, dark-skinned Europeans. That's what they're talking about. Okay? Remember, history has been rewritten on portions of the images and the faces. Like you'll see a face like this, but sometimes all it is just an animation. It's like some of the first animated characters that you've ever seen. All right, that's to cover up the melanated face that's really behind some of this stuff also as well. All right, all right. So yes, copper colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So this is where now you have the switching of places, eugenics. They came here, they saw you here, right? You fought wars with them over the years and years, hundreds of years. You fought wars with them. You got worn down in certain eras. The eras that you got worn down in, they started taking your identity, right? This is why now it's saying now apply to the Europeans born in America, right? So they pass down your identity to their children, but that's not 100% accurate because now they've also mixed in with our people, their males, our females, because it's war. They're not bringing their females over here during wartime. It's only men coming over here, right? Which hence goes back also to the King Philip's Wars. When King Philip's Wars, when they were segregating the Indian families, they was taking the males from the household, shipping them away, taking the females, shipping them away, raising the child, or they'll take the man away, and if the baby is young, they'll have the child stay with what they now deem to be the new master. Okay, what do you think he's doing to her when they sent the father to the islands to go work the sugarcane fields and stuff, right? Understand? Eugenics, right? Let's go back to the book. Where were we? All right, so we were confined to no country and defer. Each individual passes through life and death. Okay, we'll just start back from here. Are confined to no country and differ widely in their methods and beliefs, but they appear to the present writer to subscribe implicitly, if not explicitly, to a common creed, which may be outlined as follows. Each individual, as he passes through life to its end, in death, derives his active qualities at each moment of whatever nature they may be from the interaction of two separate yet not wholly independent causes. The one may be called his inborn potentiality. That goes back to being Aboriginal, indigenous, okay? Or capacity for development The other, the environment. Now we're going back into nature. We're seeing why they're burning down these trees. We're seeing why they're capturing all these animals. They hunt so many animals into extinction, or they keep back only 1 and 2. We'll see why they'll take a melanated fox or wolf, capture it, then release it after they figured out how to tamper with the genetics to suppress the gene that create the darker hue coding to create that white coding and replace and put it back out into nature. That's what China does. That China does those experiments. That's why Trump goes, well, China does that. So China is a socialist, a communistic country. What does that have to do with eugenics? Because eugenics goes back to even Adolf Hitler. He practiced that. Hitler was more so not about physical warfare, but about genetical warfare of how to suppress a certain gene within a certain race of people. That was Hitler. That's what Hitler was teaching. This is why when those Saxons, now the newly formed faces of the Saxon society, now identified as Ashkenazis and Khazars, when they came over here and they gained control in certain positions of power, they took all those scientists from Germany and brought them over here. And now you got NASA, you got the CDC. Okay, this is where these things came from. These entities came from, and their children came up in these positions of power in these foundations and still pushing the eugenics cause today. All right, inborn potential.
And to add to that, also, eugenics is also an offshoot from anthropology. So when you're talking about eugenics, you got to address it from anthropology. You know what I'm saying? Because anthropology was the study of human behavior. And then it was Madison Grant, who in the 1800s was also a German, because Madison Grant wrote a book, and like your Walter Plecker, all of them was students of Madison Grant.
Yeah.
Okay. And from there, he also influenced the political the political realm, people in politics. They read his book of how to purge or keep a pure race, mainly the Nordic people. So this would be the people like from Western Europe, like is it Scandinavian, Denmark, all these places, Denmark, Dutch, Germany, all these places particularly were to be separated and just to be the pure race, not to mix, not to mingle. So yes, so anthropology was the beginning of so I'm sorry to cut you, but I could just do a little line so you could see where it's coming from.
You want me to screen share, or what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, because I want the people to realize where it comes from somewhere. Okay. It didn't just pop out like 200 years ago. This is over 500 years.
All right. So when you're ready for me to screen share, let me know.
Okay.
All right. So anytime you want to freely chime in, also you can. Okay. All right.
So let me try to. Let me see if I can share it.
Horse dead cold flat. Thank you, brother. Thank you. All right, let me.
I don't know if you got it.
Oh, wait. I think it's about to act up. Hold on. Let's see.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
that. We got it.
See my screen?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, so I'm gonna show you. I mean, this is on Wikipedia. This is on Wikipedia, but hey, it is what it is.
As long as
abstract known anthropology. Yeah, the abstract known anthropology is first attested in reference to history. Its present use first appeared in Renaissance Germany. So it always ties back to Germany for some reason. In the works of Magnus Hunt and Otto Kassmann, their New Latin Anthropologia derived from the combining forms of the Greek words anthropos and logos study. Its adjectival form appeared in the works of Aristotle. So I don't know if you guys know who's Aristotle is, but it began to be used in English, possibly via French anthropology by the 18th century. So I don't know if you guys know who Aristotle is, but these people always come off as they use this term philanthropy, right? Most of these philanthropists, they are advocates for eugenics, okay? So Madison Grant, right, was also a member of the racialist movement. Perhaps more than any other man, Madison Grant created what we might call a racialist movement in American history. This was the period beginning approximately with the administration of Theodore Roosevelt. So as you could see, so he was a part of the administration of Theodore Roosevelt. We all know Theodore Roosevelt was the president of the United States. Okay? Who wrote that the Negro was a member of a perfectly stupid race, right? And continuing through the administration of Warren Harding. Okay, these are presidents during which the country discarded its remaining melting pot sentimentalism about blacks and foreign immigration. The period also saw the emergence of a new science, eugenics, okay, which promised to banish inherent evils. This era of explicit intellectual racialism lasted until approximately the Great Depression, when withered under Franklin Roosevelt, massive shift to the left, and finally collapsed during the war with Nazi Germany. Okay, but this whole movement is from Nazi. Okay, Madison Grant, 1565 to 1937, worked tirelessly for the racialist movement for almost his entire period. This entire period, he joined, chaired, and often founded its organizations. He counted among his closest associates U.S. presidents, top industrialists, best-selling writers, and some of the greatest scientists of the time. And he wrote two of the seminal work of American racialism, The Passing of the Great Race. So that's the book he wrote, right? The Conquest of a Continent, right? Grant was born in New York in 1865, just as the first of the modern white against white conflicts was closing. He was descended from Jacobites, right, who came to the colonies from Scotland after the defeat of Bonnie Prince Charlie in the 45 uprising in 1745. And throughout his life retained the Jacobite brand of conservative fire. He was graduated from Yale in 1887, received a law degree from Columbia. The Passing of the Great Race was published in 1916 with immediate popular success. It established Grant as the authority in anthropology. Okay? You see that? You seen that, right?
Yep.
And laid the groundwork for his research in the emerging science of eugenics. It was read by presidents, dictators, scientists, and common people alike. And even today, excoriated as it is, it has much to teach. The impact of the book can be understood only in the cultural milieu in which it appeared. Immigration just after the war began. The states proceeded at great speed. The decade of the 1880s saw the arrival of 5,246,613 immigrants, okay? And in 1882 alone 788,992 were admitted. 220,000 Chinese came, all right? 220,000 Chinese came from 1854 to 1882. So subsiding a bit in the 90s, The influx rose again after the turn of the century, averaging over 800,000 arrivals each year between 1900 and 1914. Most of these were immigrants from parts of the world unfamiliar to Americans: Russia, Poland, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Balkans, and Turkey. Many newcomers brought Marxist and anarchist ideas alien to the old American stock. Just as it does today, the American identity faced a two-pronged threat: a large influx of aliens and the presence of a large Negro element. Negro migration to northern industrial cities brought a slow awakening to the entire country of the true nature of the race problem, and Thomas Dixon's 1905 novel, The Klansman, was one of the first works in the new century to focus on it. The book's sympathetic accounts of the first Ku Klux Klan encouraged the reappraisal of often sentimental notions about blacks. In a sense, this reappraisal came to a head in August in 1908 in Lincoln-owned Springfield, Illinois. A black habitual criminal attacked a white girl in her bedroom while being pursued by her father, turned and killed him with a razor. At least one other attack on a white woman was also reported, and the white people responded by killing 2 blacks and burning down a crime-ridden black neighborhood called the Badlands. Thousands of local blacks fled Springfield. It was this event that inspired the creation of the National Association of Advancement of Colored People in Springfield in 1909. Okay? In 1915, a new entertainment medium widened the audience for a racialist message when D.W. Griffith debuted his film masterpiece, Birth of a New Nation, based upon a Klansman, and to some degree, Dixon's 1902 Leopard Spots. The movie was hailed as a technical triumph even by its harshest critic. Nevertheless, the NAACP, along with other black and some Jewish organizations, picketed the movie and threatened violence in the cities where it opened, right? So you got to understand that this stuff is going on since way back. You know this, he say he's a descendant of the Jacobites.
Yeah.
So the Jacobites was from the Stuart. The Stuarts was King James. King James was the one who gave the charter for the colony, the Virginia colony and Plymouth colony.
Mm-hmm.
So these things go all the way back. It's not just today, okay? And as for the miseducation, the propaganda, Nazi propaganda, after the German invasion of the Soviet Union, Nazi propaganda stressed to both civilians at home and to soldiers, police officers, and non-German auxiliaries serving in occupied territory themes linking Soviet communism to European Jewry, presenting Germany as a defender of Western culture against Judea Bolshevik threat, and painting an apocalyptic picture of what would happen if the Soviets won the war. This was particularly the case after the catastrophic German defeat at the Stalingrad in February 1943. These themes may have been instrumental in inducing Nazi and non-Nazi Germans, as well as the local collaborators, to fight on until the very end. So these are the films that they did. So much of the movies you see now is propaganda. These are all propaganda.
Yeah.
Films in particular played an important role in disseminating racial anti-Semitism and superiority of German military power, and the intrinsic evil of the enemies as defined by Nazi ideology. Nazi films portray Jews as subhuman creatures infiltrating Aryan society. For example, The Eternal Jew, directed by Fritz Hipper, portrayed Jews as wandering cultural parasites consumed by sex and money. Some films, such as The Triumph of the Will by Lenny, glorified Hitler and the National Socialist.
Oh, look at this, right? Look at this. Even though you said the blues glorify sex and money. Look at the guy in the casting couch. He's Jewish. Look at the creation of the porn industry. Jewish people who they call Jewish people, who they're trying to identify as Jewish people. They created the porn industry. right? So I definitely get what you're saying right there, right? All right, go ahead. You can continue.
And this is what Alex this is what Alex was talking about. Race crossing in Jamaica, right? The
Yeah.
Carnegie Institution of Washington, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Race crossing by C.B. Davenport, right? And Morris Stegerda in
Now,
collaboration with F.G. Benedict.
stick a pin right there, right?
Saying,
Stick a pin right there. I'm glad you brought that up. But let me, Kurimeo, you have anything that you want to say, brother?
yeah, go ahead.
I'm good. I'm listening.
All right, so let me show you something. Let me
I do want to
say
add
something.
something about the Wikipedia thing. You know, just because it's Wikipedia doesn't mean there's no sources there. A lot of the times you'll see a number, a footnote, and you can well verify the source if it's real or not. So don't just, you know, dog out Wikipedia just because everybody says it's fake or anything. I mean, yeah, some things are people's opinions because they get to edit it. But if you don't see a footnote, then you should know that's an opinion unless you see a footnote and go verify the footnote.
Yeah. 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 Now let me play something for you. This is Bill Gates, right? If they'll let it play. If they'll let it play. If they'll let it play. I think it's two. It's this video. I think it's this one. Oh. Oh, okay, here we go. What's happening now? The 60 part of social distancing so that we won't even be able to procreate like how we were doing. Reason being is because the charts that Bill Gates is about to show, I think it's going to be in this video here. It shows that they were predicting how the birth rate or was going to rise amongst what they call many African people from 2021 to 2050. So this coronavirus thing is not going to win no time soon. This is about lowering the population. If it doesn't play on here, I'll just play the audio on my phone.
Right? Lots of questions came in.
Okay, here we go. It doesn't have this page. A lot of people
want to know how you balance the opportunity to address food scarcity with
you guys are breaking
many have around. Right. So genetically modified organisms, that's where you create.
Is it still they stop? Yeah, they're messing with the feed. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the link in the chat of both. I have two videos of Bill Gates. I'm going to put both videos in the chat, and I'm going to play the audio from my cell phone so that you guys can hear it. All right. Let me pull it up right now with my phone. The whole thing is now. This is the guy that's pushing for the vaccine for the coronavirus. Like, we really need y'all to wake up, right? The whole thing is to stop a specific group of people from mixing more into the population or procreating, right? Because a certain demographic of people, they don't have a younger generation in the next 50 years coming up. It's just the older generation. While a certain group of people have 60% of the world's population right now is of their younger generation, or you're going to see. I think it's in this video, but this video is also very interesting. Let me pull up the audio, right? Because this is, I say this is some cold. This is some cold. All right, give me 1 second. Here we go.
A lot of people want to know how you balance the opportunity to address food scarcity with the concerns that may have around GMOs. Right. So genetically modified organisms, that's where you create a new seed by using some biological approach that changes the gene. One example is you can put a gene in that prevents the plant from getting disease. And so a disease that's wiping out the crops of poor people and causing tens of thousands to starve, you can get rid of that. the techniques we're using here were actually invented for human medicine. And in the case of human medicine, we don't have...
Let me just point out this. What do you know Bill Gates for? Apple, Macintosh, electronics. Why is he speaking on genetically modifying seeds? The genetics of a seed. Now, the genetics of a seed that grows into a plant, then fruits, right? A couple years ago, you used to hear them say, oh, you know, these fruits now, they grow like human tissues into the fruits and into this and into that. And people are like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Stop it. But then, lo and behold, here goes a coronavirus file, which I have it. I have it, the entire dossier of the coronavirus going back from 1962. What he's speaking on is the fact that they use human genetics and put into not only into pigs, animals, they put it into the fruits, the vegetables that you eat. Not only were they taking the human genetics, they were taking animal genetics and putting into these things. Why were they doing that? Because the vaccines that they created to cause diseases, they were into these animals. So they put the genetics, the DNA, into the food source, the food product, also as well. Population control. Now, what do they then do now? Oh, viruses are spreading, diseases are spreading. We come now with this miracle drug, this solution. They give you the drug, you get the solution, right? What you think is a solution, you're begging for it. Next minute, you know you want to have a child, you can't have children. Population control, right? Let's keep going. And if folks don't believe me about the whole coronavirus thing, on my other videos, probably in the description box of this one right here, the entire file is like about 10,000 pages. I put the link to the entire file. It's there.
Have a total ban on all drugs that are created this way, nor do we have a total acceptance. What we do is each drug gets created, it's trialed, and then each country has scientists to look at what are the benefits and what are the risks of that drug, and they decide. And it's a very sophisticated system that's trying to maximize human welfare. For plants, it's going to be the same. That is, to on priority say, no, we don't want that seed that blocks disease. That's dooming the poorest to never have this kind of tool. And it'd be ironic since many of these advances are creating things like drought tolerance that poor people only need because rich people have been emitting so much CO2 that the climate conditions are worse for those poor people. Now, making sure that there's that scientific data so that they can analyze crop by crop, that's something that the foundation is helping to invest in, but each country will have its own decisions. And there are in the pipeline some fantastic crops that need to be looked at. And we have decades of experience where rich countries have used GMOs. Some countries like South Africa, Burkina Faso, Egypt are using some GMOs right now. But the big wins are ones that come later. And each
the big win that he's talking about, that the ones that are coming later, is he's talking about the Americas. Now, I told you, everything they do, they experiment on nature first before they take it to us, the children of nature, right?
You guys are breaking up
these plans. Now, I'm breaking up again?
Okay, well, every time I tell you, you start sounding better.
They're messing with my feed. Anytime I'm going to go talk, they're going to mess with it. I know what's coming right now. I know what's happening. They've been doing this. I'm about to touch on some shit, so they're about to try to tamper with the feed. Right. So now what I'm going to say is, anytime they're going to experiment on you, they do it to nature first. When you see these massive fires that's going on, right, and you see these organizations,
breaking up again.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, they're gonna mess with the sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to end the live right here and redo it. Do another one from where I left off tomorrow. All right, because I know what's happening, because they already started kicking people out the video right now, out the live. They're kicking people out. I see it. The numbers is just keep going down by tens. So Yeah. Anytime I'm about to go into details, they're going to tamper with the sound. They know where I'm heading with this. They know. So I'm going to do it tomorrow. What I'm going to do, brother, is I'm going to go through my external hard drive, add what I could add on their programs, and then try to download the Zoom, and then I'll hit you up to walk me through how to set it up, and then we go through it. I'm clear now. All right, let me try again. If they interfere with this time, tomorrow. So what I'm saying is this: what he's talking about, and the reason why I played that audio, right? And let me give you guys the link to the video so that folks can't say, no, that's not the video. You're lying. No. One thing about me, I'm not gonna lie to you. Here you go. That's the link to the video, right there. Y'all can go see it. Now, what he's talking about in that 2-minute video is the most sinister talk I've ever heard. He said some of Africa. You know why some? Because Africa started the 50 African states that was founded by Muammar Gaddafi and Robert Mugabe. They've united, which is why I'm saying we need to unite like that. They've united and took themselves away from the colonial conquered system of which people have been wrongly educated that the Africans have been conquered and they've lost everything, and they have everything. They still have all their resources. What wakes up when the sleeping giant realizes, oh shoot, well, if you left all the way from the other side of the world to come here to mine gold here, to mine diamonds here, to mine iridium, plutonium, to mine all these things here, to get the crystal clear drinking water here, why can't I do that? Or why am I allowing you to destroy my land if your gold mining is destroying the water? And if it's destroying the water, then it's not beneficial to the plants. If it's not beneficial to the plants, then the very animals that I have to graze on the land are going to die from these things. Then why allow you to continue to mine if I need the crop? I need the animals to survive. I need natural things to give me natural stimulus, to give me a natural boost in my immune system. What Bill Gates is talking about is GMO. He's talking about tampering with the plants to where the nutrients that it gives you to stop diseases, it's not going to stop the disease. He says a disease blocker. Do you know what a disease is? A disease is when a scientist tampers with a healthy bacteria that was put in place by the creator to be of something healthy for the human body or nature, and then they tamper with it and teach it how to attack the host of which it was supposed to be protecting. That's what gives you a disease, a virus, which they then call a disease. Okay, that is what a virus is. So now they're gonna put things into the plants, into the food, to stop to be virus blockers, like they claim with these vaccines. But then they inject you with a vaccine, it stops one thing, and a couple years later, 50 million things awaken inside of you.
Breaking up.
That wasn't even supposed to have been there. What was the cause? I'm breaking up again, right?
Every time I cut in, they're
going to do it.
I know. It's funny, man. I can't believe this.
They're messing with it. They're messing with it. They're messing with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, tomorrow, we're going to go in because I have a whole other portion that I was trying to prepare that I didn't get a chance to prepare. So, I mean, this is a good thing still at the same time, right? So I have time to still go through more of the stuff that I was going through to put together to now present to you guys tomorrow.
Okay, here we go. I'm just trying to help you. Every time I talk, it fixes. It's weird. I got you, man.
So, good looking. So, what I'm saying is this, man. He's talking about blockers that you're going to that's into the food. Any food,
there we go.
Fruit that you buy. Any fruit that you buy and it doesn't have a seed in it, it's no good for you. Okay? It's no good for you. What they're doing, see, when they massively burn down all these trees, they're replacing them with GMO products. Those GMO trees that they're replacing them with, right? Over time, you're going to eat that fruit. You're going to feel all energized. But remember, they injected it with how many different types of infections inside of it, and then say, well, it blocks this, it blocks that. Then you're wondering, why are you getting sick? How come you're getting allergic to the plant? How come you're getting allergic to the plants when you're from a tropical environment that is filled with plants? The creator don't create you to be allergic to the environment that he created you in. That makes no sense. So when did you start becoming allergic to your own environment? What changed? Historically, what changed? Colonization. What did colonization bring? Eugenics. What did eugenics bring?
Oh, wow.
GMO products. What is GMO products? GMO products brought fake fruits, fake this, fake that, half-ass fruit, right? Now you have these products, they burn down 10 million acres of land, they replant back 10 million acres of GMO trees, right? Trees that will pop up if there's pollution in the air. Like in my backyard, when the air is highly polluted, a whole bunch of ferns grow naturally, and mushrooms in my backyard naturally grow, right? Now, when the air is really clean, you don't see the ferns. They don't come up at all. The mushrooms don't come up at all. They're going to use GMO trees. These trees are going to half-ass filter the toxins they're pumping in it. This is why they had to burn down all these millions of acres in the Amazon, because Amazon is a natural filtration system for the entire Americans. Okay, in order for the pathogens to spread, they need to get rid of the trees. They need to get rid of them and replace them. If a man comes and you have your cherry tree in your front yard, and a man comes and your cherry tree, you never gotten sick with your cherry tree, and says, hey, this cherry tree is better than that cherry tree. Now,
oh, wow.
And you go and you get that cherry tree from that man, and 10 years later, you got cancer. Now you got bronchitis. Now you got all these things, and you're like, damn, where did that come from? When I had when I was eating from my naturally grown cherry tree, nothing wasn't happening to me. I wasn't getting no diseases. I wasn't getting no sickness. I didn't feel tired, energy deficient, none of these things. But here it is 10 years later with these trees, and I'm feeling effects. That's what GMO is, people. All they're doing is replacing the natural thing to put an artificial thing to kill you slowly. This man don't have your best interest at heart. Any mayor, any governor that's backing him, they're a part of the Communist Party. Communism is the eugenics party. That goes back to the whole socialism type of structure of society. It goes back to Nazi Germany. It goes back to Socrates and all these other Greeks from back then. Pay attention. This is why the Masonic societies is a Greek mythology society, a Greco-Roman society. Okay. Now, let's finish playing out his own thing. Just let's see if they're going to let it play out. They know what's coming.
As a special case, not ruled out or ruled in based on the general perception.
Yeah, they don't mess with it. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. Here's what I'm gonna do. And I thank you. I hope
people realize what's going on. Like every time I say a word, it fixes.
Yeah, they're messing with my feed. It's my feed. They're messing with it. Right? Yeah. But you know, it comes with the territory. You see what I'm saying? It comes with the territory. It is what it is. It just makes me come back 10 times better in the next live. And you know what I mean? So you know, I don't let it get to me. You know what I mean? I don't let it take me down. But so what I'm just gonna say is, you know, I thank everyone for being here. Brother Kurimeo, American Arawak, Sister Malkia, Brother Alex, Brother Kappa Hotstep, Brother Lacono. Like from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all. I thank y'all for the unity, for us coming together to show that we can, you know, there's like-minded people. There's many more brothers and sisters out there that we love to unite with. You see what I'm saying? We're not just going to just jump and say anyone can. No, like I've sat back and I've watched Kurimeo for a long time before I actually hit him up and say, hey brother, would you mind coming on the panel? Hey brother, we have certain things, so and so. You know, would you like to be a part of what it is that we're working on, right? And that's based off of just me observing his movements, how consistent he has stayed with the information, right? You got to respect that. You got to honor that. You see what I'm saying? You got to honor that, right? Brother American Arawaks helped me take my stuff. Again, I come across other brothers that helped me take my stuff to another level. American Arawaks helped me take my to another level, right? Kappa Hot Step and Brother Locono, they put so many stuff into perspective when they're in the depth of how they go also into giving the information as well, right? Brother Alex and Sister Malkia, they helped me to even get more rooted into my ancestry. You see what I'm saying? So, we have to give homage where homage is due to the ones out there that are doing great work. And these brothers and sisters are doing great work, and I have to thank them. And it's not about me even inviting them onto the panel. It's about how honored I am that they accepted the invitation, right? I'm very honored. They didn't have to do it. They could have just said, F you, I ain't coming on here. Or maybe you could have been like, yo, my platform is way bigger than yours, bro. I ain't coming on there. Why should I come on here? You see what I'm saying? American Arawaks could have been like, yo, bro, I'm not helping you learn no more about this and that, or Lacono and Kappa Hot Step couldn't be like, nah, bro, we're just building with UK people or so on and so, or these folks over here, Sister Malky and Brother Alex could have been like, well, X, at one time we had parted ways, screw you, but they didn't. They didn't do that. These are honorable people, these are honorable people. And I look forward into working more with each and every single one of them, right? These are trailblazers, and I love them. I love them for what they do. I love them for who they are. I love them for being the humans that they are, the souls that they are, and what they are contributing to the community. All right. So, yeah. And I just, if everyone want to say their piece before we go, we'll start with Sister Malky and Brother Alex.
I know what you're doing. Appreciate you as well, X. We appreciate each and everybody on the panel, everything that everybody brought forth. We appreciate you offering your perspective and your expertise and your knowledge. We appreciate each and every one of us sharing. Even to the listeners out there, we appreciate that you guys take the time to listen to us. Even though you may have your life going on, your busy life with all that's going around, with all that's happening out there, we give thanks that at the time that you thought us were the time for those who are alive, and for those that's gonna see this afterward. We just appreciate that you're still here to the end, that you're still hearing what's going on. You're still hearing our thoughts and ideas and opinions, and things, and you're here learning us as we go along as well on our journey. And we encourage you to go forward. We're encouraging everybody in their journey to go forward. Let's all go forward together as a people. Unite in ways that we can, and see how best we can collaborate on the matters that we agree on. And let us see how we can put aside the division and all that the colonizer has constructed to keep us apart. Because we're all family now. We're all family. So I love you now.
Yeah, I must say personally that it's really good to be an active part and member of the Great Arawakan Council. You guys are fantastic, and thanks for you all working together to make this happen. A man once said to me that all the things that our people do as original are always blighted by the fact that we can't get past personal differences. And that might be the only wise thing that man ever said, but it really stuck with me. You know, we've been able to put aside personal differences and look solely at what draws us together, and that's our shared origin. And people need to recognize that we need to do more of that, and to recognize who we are, how we are similar, and stop looking at how we're different. I would also like to ask the people to look deeply into themselves and to realize that, hey, you know, I am right now, as an individual, I'm an endangered species. You know, those of us who are looking within and thinking deeper and doing inquiry, we're in danger right now. And if we don't get serious, if we don't get together, and if we don't instill it in as many people as we possibly can, you know, look deeper, seek knowledge, try to be who you are and who you're supposed to be, then, you know, the world is in trouble. Because right now you have people walking around in a state of zombification. I hope that our people will wake up. You know, thanks for having us as usual.
No problem, man. No problem at all. Brother Kurimeo?
Yeah, man. You know, I'm just honored to be invited. You know, for me, it's always a pleasure to build. You know, with anybody, especially you brothers. You know, I know Copper Hostep and Lacona for a while now. DJ Gambler, they've always shown me love and stuff, and been respectful and everything. And you know, always digging. You know, anybody who they associate with, because I always see positiveness and just information being passed, not debating or hating or anything negative. So I appreciate that. I think that there's a whole bunch of information coming out. So right now, like, I think everybody should definitely take advantage of all this information coming out, look into how it fits into your personal life and your personal history. And, like, because, individually, nobody can tell you who you are. You got to dig into it, So, and regarding, people who be hating and stuff, you're right. I think that you said something earlier that we got to hold these people accountable, man. Like, we up under their platforms and stuff. I'm not telling you who to watch, but, like, when you hear hijack, you're promoting it, they're going to think it's okay. They're going to keep continuing to speak that because you're loving it. You're giving shout outs. You're throwing arrows and fires there, calling these people gods and stuff when they're just really being really negative, man. And so, that's my opinion on that. So I appreciate you, Darkman, for the invite, for having me here and, building and allowing me to join, your group and your society and stuff. And so we can build something great, not just in North America, but all over the Americas. So I appreciate that, and it's an honor for me. I do want to say that if nobody knows, yesterday I was live. I was, censored by the same people I was talking about because it's really obvious,
Exactly.
I was playing my own video, so it makes no sense. It wasn't YouTube. I was playing my own video, and that video is still up, and it was never taken down. So it was not YouTube, and that video is monetized and everything. They don't even bother me about that. So it was obvious that somebody reported it when I was live, and I had it taken down. So, the haters will be haters, but they will never prosper. They cannot, stop this. And right after this, I'm about to premiere, what, what was taken down. So, stay tuned. If you guys, right after this, you'd like to go over there, I'm about to premiere it if you didn't miss it. I mean, if you missed it, sorry.
Yeah, because, no lie, the live that he did yesterday, he went in. I'm telling you, he went in. Right, but it was a powerful live, and to hear that they kept reporting it and taking it down, it was real messed up, right? But it's I'm familiar with the tactics, right? It's the tactics that was used when I had the bigger platform, and so it's like, it's crazy, and it's when I saw what's happening, I was like, damn, those are the same ones that I came across when I was receiving the same thing happening to my platform. And I was like, whoa, look at that, right? And I was like, look at that. And I'm like, it don't get no more dirty than that. When other platforms are pushing information that makes you so fearful that you show your government hand, your government associated hand, right? Because we know who you are. But we're not going to say your names. and you show your government associated hand. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
I was gonna say I left out Empress Copperfox. She's been there too from the beginning, so shout out to her.
Empress Copperfox is a real fire, man, real fire. But you know, you showed your government operated hand, and the only way you can be doing stuff like this is not just with a simple report to YouTube. It's if you're associated with certain agencies out there, right? And this is what's going on, because this is the reality. A lot of the folks that we think are right for us, they're governmentally funded. They're funded by other entities other than, you know, the people and stuff. So you must understand what's happening here. This is a fight on a major level. Like I said, man, we have two entities warring. We have those who are fighting for freedom. We have those who are fighting to continuously keep the masses who are trying to be free enslaved. This is what's happening. All right. So we just say to you, to all of you out there, be wary. Stop falling for the semantics that people are giving you. Stop falling for wordplay. When someone points out and put information in front of you that's cut, dry, clean, simple as day, right? You know, someone else come along and put a spin on the goddamn thing when the information is not saying that. Like we showed you descriptive terms, the words that are descriptive. That means that identify descriptive terms. These words, you're letting someone come back again and say, "Oh, see, this is what the people over here." No, it was not. It's not true. All right, and whatever they showed you, we can show you other things that go further back to disprove what they're saying. All right. So, but it's simply in the definition of the word. You just have to learn how to break down definitions of words. Break down these words. You will never fall victim to no semantic game, because what they playing is semantics with you. That's it, right? But this is not a easy fight. This is a fight. This is the true battle. This is the true war. It's the win the minds, free the minds of you, the people. Free your minds so that you can be free thinkers, ones who are respectful to nature, to the natural life, not the artificial life. Okay, the natural life. Like when you hear a man like Bill Gates that deals with computers all his life, telling you about GMO seeds and GMO plants and all these things, the Germans, that is the old Hitler Nazi talk. Hitler's Germany was trying to convince people that GMO food, fake food that was made in a laboratory was better than the original. No way in hell. That's like dipping into a plastic vagina when you got the real woman right there, ready to give it to you.
Yep.
What do you want to keep doing? Go get a bottle of lube to lube up the plastic vagina? Come on now. Stop it. There ain't no babies coming from that. You know, so we got to wake up, people. We got to wake up. And we know who these ones are that are targeting the platforms, all right? With that being said, again, we say much love to y'all. I thank all you brothers. American Arawak. Go ahead, brother. Say your piece. Arawak, are you there? I don't think he's there. All right. Well, if American Arawak was close by his thing, I'm sure he'll send all his love to you all, his respects to you all, and honors to you all, right? He is a family man. So I'm guessing that he's with his children right now, you know, sorting some things out as well. And I just say honors to American Arawaks, honors to you all, Brother Lacono, Kapat Step, Sister Malkia, Brother Alex, you know, honors to everyone that's in the chat, everyone that's subscribed to the platform, to everyone that shares all of our information. Brother Kurimeo said that he's about to do a premiere. Go over to his platform. Stay tuned for the premiere. Subscribe to American Arawaks. Subscribe to Lacono. Subscribe to Kappa Hot Step. See the brothers in the chat. They all give great information, people, and they all have a great breakdown of the information. There's no trickery. There's no nothing. You need to learn anything about law. You need to learn about how to properly prepare your documentation, paperwork, anything like that. American Arawaks has simple videos that breaks it down so simply. You see what I'm saying? It's there. You want to go in the depths of history, Brother Lacono, Brother Kurimeo, Brother Kappa Hot Step. You see what I'm saying? You want to know about the herbs, the roots, the culture, Sister Malkia, Brother Alex, they have it. It's everything. It's here. It's here. No one is hitting you over the head for charging you an arm and a leg. The information is being given to you here. You know what I mean? It's here, right? Now, if you see one of our brothers and sisters are in a location where you know they're definitely the environment is hard, and you know they put through the dedication, there's nothing wrong with helping them out. You see what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, what they're giving you is very powerful that no one could take away from you. And something powerful enough to pass on to your children. We are actually rebuilding the ancestral culture and heritage right here through these platforms. Because what we learn and what we come across when we're digging up in even archival records, we're learning now to keep back the secret. Take it back what's ours. We uncover something that they didn't even realize was there, and we keep it as that secret to keep our legacy keep on going, so we know when an outside is going to pretend to infiltrate, right? So yeah, you know. And so with that being said, I say peace, love, and light to you all, and honors to you all, and you know, thank you all for coming through on the panel. Thank you all for coming through, everyone, and peace. I'll go over to Brother Kurimeo for his premiere. He's about to drop, and honors everyone.